Sword of Coming Chapter 1148. A night sailing boat is like a leaf of duckweed in the sea. Lu Xianying seemed to be wandering for thousands of miles. Xiaomo was responsible for keeping an eye on Jiangxi's Taoist monk. Xiego sat on the steps and yawned, and the woman's eyes often wandered over Pei Qian. The atmosphere in the courtyard was a little heavy, and the old scholar suddenly said, "Pei Qian, come with me for a walk." Pei Qian nodded. There was a side door in the courtyard that could lead to other places, but the moon cave door was locked. The old scholar pretended to fumble around in his sleeves, turned his back to everyone, and seemed to take out the key and open the door. He pushed the door open and Pei Qian followed. Different from the previous shabby courtyard, this place is a unique place. It is a typical Gongqing residence with tall green bamboos, green color, clear top and bottom. One wall is slightly empty, filled with magnolia. I want to be a guest room in the hot summer, but I dare not visit here in the hot weather. The old scholar looked around and said with a smile, "My boss is too stingy. If you can read in it, open the window, the skylight and green will pour in, and the words will be vivid. It will be really useful to open the book." Pei Qian put away his thoughts and explained, "I heard from my junior brother that the last city lord of Lingxi City was a woman. She could criticize Su Zi and Mr. Xuanhuan's poems. It is estimated that this is her study place. As the big boss, you shouldn't just give it to master as a private residence, otherwise someone will be suspected of cheating." The old scholar nodded and said suddenly, "This makes sense, otherwise I would have to go to the ship owner and chat a few words, and I will talk about whether there are jujubes or not." That magnolia was in its flowering season, and when it was in bloom the ground looked like snow. The old scholar clasped his hands behind his back, stood under the tree, laughed to himself and said softly, "Last time at the Confucian temple, there were two worlds facing each other and the battle was very loud. Of course the one who stole the spotlight was safe. Over at Tuoyue Mountain there is another Lalong Pei. He persuades your master to go to the wilderness so that he can help you recognize a few more mistresses. He also shows off his posture and is willing to leave the high throne empty, making it look like your master is going there today. If you leave the wilderness, you can sit in the second or third hand tomorrow." Even Fei Ran seems to be willing to give in to the superior. Zhou Qinggeo's admiration for your master is now well known to the whole world, and he can't wait to accept his uncle as his teacher. And so on, all kinds of things. Some Haoran monks who heard about this thought it was absurd and funny, and mistakenly thought that it was a savage and chaotic place and everything they did was done randomly. But don't think that those big demons are joking and deliberately teasing your master. The people in the wilderness really want to win over him, the last hidden official. He pulled up a trailing river, opened Tuoyue Mountain with his sword, and snatched away a bright moon. One-on-one he killed the first disciple of the great ancestor of the wilderness. You need to know that the culprit was still a sword cultivator at the peak of the Ascension realm. The wilderness only recognizes the strong. Since it can recognize Bai Zhe, it can recognize Qin Pingan. Not to mention Fei Ran just Xiao Sun. If she goes to the wilderness safely, you will see if she will be happy or not. She will betray the Great Wall of Sword Qi. However, Qin Pingan betrayed the Great Wall of Sword Qi in Haoran Tianxia. Based on this alone, Xiao Sun will look at your master with new eyes and regard him as a fellow disciple. The old scholar spoke eloquently and Pei Qian listened patiently and asked, "Master Wensheng, is Mr. Li Xing staring here?" The old scholar shook his head and said, "I stopped watching. I can't blame him for not taking matters into his own hands. After all, there are urgent matters and serious concerns outside the world. If you are not careful, the efforts of the founder of the three religions to spread the doctrine will be in vain." Being able to divert his attention to this night sailing and talk to Jiangxi for a few words, Li Xing had already taken a lot of risks. After listening to the old scholar's explanation, Pei Qian understood it, but he still felt a little disappointed and worried that could not be concealed. The old scholar rubbed his cheek with his hand and began to walk out. "I made a mistake in this matter. It was very bad." Pei Qian hesitated to speak, but finally swallowed the words that came to his lips. However, the old scholar did not let go of his own fault and continued, "Looking back to the source, the reason for today's embarrassment is that I thought things simply back then, thinking that I was quite thorough and not responsible. To be honest, regarding your origin, Pinyin has been kept in the dark, but I know it well. If it hadn't been for my suggestion, Taoist fellow Bixiao at Guan Taoist Temple would not have arranged many coincidences for you to meet Qin Pinyin. You will not be so worried today after leaving the lotus flower-blessed land. At that time, I always felt that Jiangxi would be full of anger when his 10,000-year sentence was about to be completed, so I wanted to find a safe way to relieve it. So as to avoid another war in the world, so we deal with this matter, I am very selfish and extremely meritorious. The old scholar made a fist with one hand and tapped the palm of his hand gently. I thought that by doing this, for Pingyan, the disciples who always think about suffering first when doing things in life can get an amulet in advance and win a little bit from the ancestor of the military strategist. Have a good impression, save a moderate amount of love, and gain the upper hand in troubled times. For example, during the years when Pingyan was guarding the Sword Chi Great Wall alone, I had always hoped that Xianxia could help rescue the enemy. For Pei Qian, if you can stay with Pingyan, walk more and see more, your horizons will be opened, and your personality will not be too stubborn. If you get along day and night, over time, you will be influenced by him, and he will be like a child who came from a scholarly family. If you are well educated, tutored and responsible, sooner or later you will become a lady who will not be outdone by men. I am very confident in Ping An's patience and Pei Qian's potential. As long as he recognizes you, he will definitely be able to take good care of you and at least give Pei Qian an ordinary childhood. After a long journey, once you have settled down, you will go to school to study. After class, you will have kind elders at home and friends you can chat with. Take your time, don't rush, grow up. For Jiangxi and his Taoist companion, it is as if a well-behaved and sensible daughter has appeared out of thin air. If the family can be reunited, it will be a blessing in disguise. It is indeed wishful thinking on my part, and I have made people's minds simple. As for you learning boxing from Mr. Cui and Zhulu, you were able to win several martial arts fortunes, which is equivalent to meeting Jiangxi in advance. Pingyan could not have expected it, and I would have never expected it. Qin Pingyan is teaching his disciples, not competing with them. Daughter. Just to mention this, it doesn't mean that Jiangxi is treating his good intentions like a donkey's heart. How can I guarantee that they will teach their daughter by themselves and they will not change her mind? Good. So I was in the wrong in this matter from the beginning, but you and Pingyan, the two children, have to take the responsibility. There is no such thing as being an elder in the world. As juniors, you feel aggrieved, but that is no reason why I can muddle through. Hearing this, Pei Qian finally couldn't help but want to say a few words from his heart. He gathered his voices into a line and whispered, "Master, actually when I encounter this kind of thing, it's not that uncomfortable. It's just a bit inexplicable. I just treat Jiangxi and the two of them as strangers I met by chance on the road. I can guarantee that I did not say this deliberately to make my master feel at ease. It is indeed my sincere words. What really hurts me is that master, who has been very determined since childhood, wants to him thinking a lot. What if?" Pei Qian originally wanted to say if possible the master would not mind her being a drag and she must be counted in this fight. To her, the world is big and the master is the biggest. The old scholar waved his hand, interrupted Pei Qian's next words and said softly, "Don't say angry words with emotions, it is easy to hurt others and yourself. In the end we are the ones who suffer." Pei Qian was silent. Taking a walk and relaxing, the old scholar took Pei Qian out of the mansion together, walked on the slightly deserted street, looked back at the plaque on the mansion and said slowly, "The real wealth is not in the palace full of gold and jade, the treasures of calligraphy and painting, all kinds of objects are so dazzling. Compared with those aristocratic families whose reputation as a gentleman can last for 3 or even 5 generations, the rich and powerful families who have gained power for a while are far inferior to their foundation. They need to cultivate themselves and learn well and manage their families well. Law, surname, there are genealogies for names, family temples and ancestral halls for worship, and ancestral precepts for conduct." Pei Qian nodded and said, "I remember Master said that what he considers a scholarly family is that there are many books in the family. From an early age, children feel that reading is a natural thing, and it would be strange if a person does not read. You don't have to worry about how many books have been stamped by masters of all generations on the books, and you don't have to worry too much about whether the bookstore edition of a certain book is excellent or whether it is a rare copy. The most important thing is to pay attention to the annotations of your ancestors on those books. More, later generations when children and grandchildren read books, they can see a lot of reading experience. Being able to read a book more thoroughly and understand it more deeply can be regarded as the second enlightenment, that is, the secret transmission of family knowledge, which can be said to be a unique pursuit of scholarship. It's law." The old scholar stroked his beard and smiled, full of admiration, and said with a smile, "The master of the mountain, the head of the family, can take care of 3 generations, that is considered powerful enough. Pingyan has already achieved a 100-year plan for Luolu Mountain and Qingping Sword Sect. If you want to make a 1,000-year plan in the long run, you need your disciples and disciples to set an example and set an example. The principles are always the same on the mountain and down the mountain. It is hard to say whether you are willing to leave money to your descendants or not. Even if thousands of books are left behind, there is still a difference between whether the children and grandchildren will read them or not. However, teaching by words and deeds, being a decent person, and having the influence of ancestors, and setting up a few good traditions are the only way for the country to succeed. Property is passed down from generation to generation, and is treasured by descendants. Now Luo Shan and Qingping Sword Sect, the upper sect and the lower sect each have 3 generations of disciples. I just don't know who the number 1 disciple of the 4th generation will be. How old will that person be by then? Is he a swordsman? All in all, worth looking forward to. At some point, Lu Xianying followed him secretly. Marrying a good wife will lead to prosperity for 3 generations, but I don't know who will be able to marry Pei Qian with a good son and a smoke rising from the ancestral grave. Pei Qian rolled his eyes. Lu Xianying asked in his heart, Mr. Wensheng, do you know Lu Yuzhou? The old scholar was stunned. Ha! Lu Yuzhou is such a good kid. Is Lu Jubao burning a lot of incense? Lu Xianying continued to smile and said, how do you think it compares to Chao Qinglang? The old scholar was startled again. Hey! Lu Xianying said with a smile, I think Li Huai is not bad either. The old scholar seems to be led by the nose. After thinking about it carefully, it seems, huh? Pei Qian asked, what are you talking about? Lu Xianying said shamelessly, Qin Pinggan's husband is not my husband. He is too outspoken and hurts Master Wensheng's heart. I can treat it as anonymous or anonymous. Of course, the student must find an opportunity to discuss the matter with the gentleman who has not had the apprenticeship tea yet. How about promoting the virtuous and not avoiding relatives, and giving the Confucian Temple the title of gentleman? If one more sect leader Sword Immortal becomes a student in the future, the husband goes out to brag to others, I will accept disciples, strive for excellence and start as a swordsman. The old scholar's eyes widened, tut. Unknowingly, a woman alone followed him from a distance. Pei Qian's expression remained as usual. Further back, there is a girl in a mink hat with rosy cheeks and Xiao Mo in a yellow hat and blue shoes, walking side by side on the street talking to each other. Xiego rubbed his mink hat. It was difficult for an upright official to take care of household chores. She, the second-in-command minister, was a little worried, annoyed and worried to death. Xiego said, Xiao Mo, can you lend me your hiking pole for fun? The mountain owner said it himself. I can ask you for it when you get back. Now that the young master has spoken, Xiao Mo casually handed the green bamboo stick to Xiego and asked in his heart, why don't you feel any reaction to the young master calling him by his first name? Xiego picked up the hiking pole, rubbed his face with it and said, ha, it's a token of love. Xiao Mo was helpless. I want to ask you a question. Xiego said, the mountain master doesn't want you to get involved in this matter, and he is determined to keep us both out of it. What is the temper of the mountain master? You have been following him for so long and you still don't know. If you are not a dead soldier, it's okay, I can trust you, you are able to contribute, you can help, just help, the mountain master won't be vague with you. You just don't have the word, dead soldier, carved on your forehead. The mountain owner doesn't want you to take risks, so nothing will happen to you. Xiao Mo asked doubtfully, but even if the young master intends to avoid me, why can't I find any clues despite my current state? Xiego said, not to mention that you are not really 14 now, even if you are already, with the mountain master's strategy, deliberately hiding it from you is just like playing. Xiao Mo nodded, I blame me for unnecessary actions. I gave it to you before. The young master's robe has been carefully designed to be connected with my soul and one of my natal flying swords. The young master must have seen through this trick last time in Chongyang. Seeing that he was attacked by the ghost, the young master did not put on his robe. Sure enough, I was superfluous. Xiego just found out about this, he stamped his foot and said angrily, oh, Xiao Mo. Xiao Mo was absent-minded. After all, he was still worried about the fight between his young master and Jiangxi. How could the master fight someone to the death while the dead man was just hanging around? Xiao Mo asked in his heart, when the master was in seclusion, I was not in Luapa Mountain, and you were the protector of the Fiolu Dojo. Even you couldn't contact the master? Xiego shook his head, this kind of thing, what are you trying to do? If the mountain master, the mountain master will definitely return to the night ship alive and kicking. If you find out that I concealed military information, you will scold me half to death and hold a grudge for hundreds of years. It's not like you don't understand my temper. Even if the mountain master doesn't allow me to reveal his traces to you, I swore a poisonous oath to the mountain master. Xiaoma said nothing more. Xiego said mysteriously, as promised in advance, it's not me who is instigating discord. Xiao Mo, do you think that the mountain master's attainments in the soul are too genius? The Ma family's mansion in the capital of Xuanhuan Kingdom created all kinds of illusions are confused with reality. If there are mostly common people and warriors here, and the level of chi practitioners is not high, then finding traces of the demon clan Shaoxing in the lotus root blessed land is almost equivalent to fabricating a loyal Su Jiaoqia out of thin air, which is not a small trick. In Tonggishao, in that dilapidated ancient temple, the Qingyang people were toyed with by applause, not to mention the small world that drove those unpaid long-term workers coolly, trying to create a small world. Especially the ascension method used by Taoist priest Datin to protect and observe the Tao. Not only Qin Pingan knew Xiaogo's qualifications in cultivating Taoism, but even if he had a vision as high as that of an old blind man, he would place Bai Jing among the first-class people. So Bai Jing commented that he was too genius, which shows how powerful Qin Pingan is in Xuanhuan. Xiao Mo thought for a moment, and to be careful, he pinched a Taoist formula in his sleeve, added several layers of formation restrictions, and then asked, since the young master is the current sword wielder, if he is not proficient in this Tao, then he is weird thing? Xiago looked strange and muttered in a low voice, it's not that simple. She had seen the old and new sword wielders appear side by side in Qilong Alley, and her intuition told her that it was not necessarily Qin Pingan who had obtained the magical power that was one of the 12 highest-ranking swordsmen in the past. Xiao Mo said, perhaps Sect Master Cui gave him all the money to teach me. The young master has a high understanding and learns quickly. You don't have to think about this and it won't be used on you and me. Xiago nodded and said, that's right. I have to say that the mountain owner is really a kind person. There is nothing to say to Xiaoma or to myself. Xiago grinned, raised his hands and held up his mink hat. She and Huan's mother-in-law had never known each other before, but Bai Jing had long coveted Huan's 3-character title, Land Immortal. If we talk about the later generations of Shanzi Yeshio, who are self-reliant and independent immortals, it seems that they should recognize their ancestors and return to the ancestral lineage with the small group of ancient Taoist priests, including Bai Jing. Bai Jing squinted and smiled, looking ahead at Wu Yan's back. After all, they are friends, so I don't need your Taoist nickname. The woman seemed to be aware of it and turned to the girl in the mink hat with a smile. Xiago was so angry that he complained in his heart, Xiao Mo, look at her, the expression in her eyes really deserves a beating. Are you calling me a dog who can't change and eat shit? Xiao Mo was not partial to Xiago and said, who made you so murderous? In the fight between clans, not only sticks and hoes but also knives were used. Xiago's eyes were complicated and he said, Xuanhuan is not deceiving others. After joining the Tao and entering the 14th realm, you can really understand the cycle of heaven. Walking on the Tao, I will go my own way. Xiao Mo suddenly frowned, looking past Wu Yan and looking at his young master's first disciple, Pei Qian. Xiago whispered, don't worry. Pei Qian wanted to turn her head several times to look at the scene behind her, but she obviously held back. It was a long time ago, so long that it seemed like a lifetime ago. On the way to escape in the past, there was a charcoal-looking burden with a sallow complexion, dragging oil bottles, following her parents not far or near. When passing by some stalls that both sell and sell meat, stay away from your parents who are slowing down their pace. Once you pass those stalls with blood stains on the chopping boards, you can get closer. Lu Xianying suddenly said, Pei Qian, are you still copying books now? Pei Qian, who was thinking about things, or to be precise, was remembering the forgotten past events one by one, came back to his senses and said, having become a habit, I will still copy books frequently. Lu Xianying asked with a smile, I heard from Qin Pingan that you have a chestnut collection in your collection? Pei Qian looked embarrassed, it was just a joke when I was a kid. The old scholar twirled his beard and walked slowly, thinking about the past. Just when he noticed the change in Pei Qian's mood, fortunately Lu Xianying had already spoken to bring Pei Qian's mind back to where it was before. Boss Sword Immortal is really good at swordsmanship. But talking about things with Boss Sword Immortal is really hard work. There is no easy way to get things settled. It is very difficult to make him change his mind. What are you doing? As a junior, the boss Jianxian will only show his pragmatic side, so you will think that he is kind and has no airs. You know, when discussing things in private and being pragmatic, the boss Jianxian is simply an old man in the officialdom. His words were full of twists and turns. After I got out of the house, I thought about it again and again, and then I figured out what he actually meant. Still like to talk, he would only say half of it, wait for me to answer and give the other half. If he couldn't answer, he would not say anything on his face but would actively change the topic, but he would have some concerns in his heart. Lu Xianying fell into deep thought. It seems that I am such a person. Do I have the potential to become the second best swordsman? Blacksmith Huan is so virtuous and capable that he can make himself a disciple and make a lot of money. When the old scholar left Gongdalan before he could regain his position as a god, he began to work hard. He went to borrow a few people from Jianghu Great Wall for the Confucian Temple. After finally entering the house, Qin Qingdu once asked a mean question. Is it possible that xuanhuan and zhoumi have secretly joined forces? The old scholar was so angry that he jumped to his feet and cursed, "Boss Sword Fairy, are you fooled by lard and you can ask such a question?" Qin Qing ignored the old scholar's rage and continued to ask, "Who can guarantee that this won't happen? Then why don't they come on their own, my sage? Outsiders from the temple come here to make irresponsible remarks. Scholars always behave in such a way that just to gain face for themselves, they simply make others feel shameless? Absolutely impossible." The old scholar regained his calm expression, and without any hesitation he vowed, "I can guarantee for xuanhuan that this matter is not even a contingency." Seeing that the boss swordsman still had a doubtful look, the old scholar said patiently explained, "As a teacher, I used to worry about the long-term hidden dangers brought by the disciple's knowledge of work, but I never had any doubts about the character of the first disciple. We, as literary saints, never dare to claim that our merits are flawless, but when it comes to matters of right and wrong, we never make a single mistake." Qin Qingdu smiled and rubbed salt on the old scholar's wound. "Am I remembering it wrong? Didn't Chui Chan betray the literary sage lineage long ago?" "Sir?" "A student who has been heartbroken is still willing to admit it." "You, sir?" The old scholar murmured in a low voice, "Whether he admits it or not is his business. He has always had a bad temper and I can't care less about him. Anyway, I have always regarded myself as sir." Qin Qingdu continued to rub salt into the old scholar's wounds. "If I had known this, why did I do it in the first place?" The old scholar said to himself, "What I guarantee for Chui Chan is really not very convincing. After all, what guarantee can I give? Apart from being their husbands and titles, I have nothing, right?" Qin Qing didn't say anything. I don't know whether he acquiesced or didn't take it seriously. Resentment and hatred are like cutting through a mess with a sharp knife and moving forward inexorably. When gold and iron collide, the sparks aroused are the clear distinction between grudges and grudges of a man. It's nothing more than daring to take action. Guilt and regret are like a dull knife, and the gaps on the blade are all the mistakes that have been made. To close the door and sharpen the knife is to regret. It's all up to you. The boss swordsman, the old scholar. The two people, who were very different in age but were both regarded as old people, were speechless. Finally, Qin Qingdu said that your student opened a wine shop and the business was good. If you want a drink, you can go there without spending money. In the wild world, this desolate mountain road is extremely wide. It was once a post road for transporting troops to a certain military tent. It has been abandoned for many years and wildflowers and grass grow freely. Zhang Fenghai asked in his heart, "Tell me, after Lu Tai's suggestion and with the help of my protection, I finally got what I wanted. I came to the wilderness to travel and am going to talk to Dio Ko." XNXN was silent for a moment and said, "I can't say much. I can only tell you one thing. Someone helped to make the connection and gave us a chance to get together and talk about tomorrow." Zhang Fenghai, however, refused to let go of the manifestation of the great Tao of Qingming world. "That's easy to say. After we have talked about tomorrow, can we then backtrack and decide the survival of today?" Hard Work looked dull and said calmly, "That's all." Zhang Fenghai, who has always been kind and gentle, rarely felt angry. Since this person can accomplish such a great thing, are you really not afraid of following his way and becoming a puppet? Hardworking hesitated for a moment and said, "I believe that the day after tomorrow's situation he mentioned will definitely come. You can't dig wells during drought, make umbrellas in the rain and sew clothes after the snow." Zhang Fenghai sneered, "The end of the Dharma era when the heaven and earth have no aura, and there is no supernatural power in the world? What's new about such clichés?" Hard Work said, "It's not that simple. Zhang Fenghai, you can say that I don't understand the world, but you should know that when it comes to this cycle of destiny and the ups and downs of the world, I am not a stubborn person who is easy to fool. It's not that I'm angry about your thoughts, it's just that sects have to follow sect rules, and you shouldn't make arbitrary decisions. It's a done deal and you won't talk to us on the water anymore. There needs to be a discussion." Zhang Fenghai shook his head. The matter had come to this and he no longer tried to persuade XNXN to change his mind. He just said a common saying, "Don't be afraid of not being able to do everything, just be afraid that you won't be able to do it all." Hard Work said, "Don't worry, I will never drag you down." Zhang Fenghai said angrily, Since I have become your sect master, if something really happens, I will never distance myself from some fools, stay out of the matter and just sit back and watch. The implication is that if you are really tricked by Zheng Zhuzhong, even if I, Zhang Fenghai, are destined to pay a huge price, I will give you a hand instead of pushing the trouble caused by the fool out. He worked hard and was not good at words, so he finally managed to force out a sincere sentence. As the leader of the sect, you really convince everyone. Zhang Fenghai not only did not appreciate it but laughed angrily. Why, you are not convinced at the beginning? Could it be that how can you be the leader of the clan? Just you will only apologize to us one day when the boat reaches the center of the water. I'm sorry, the boat is leaking? Or if you don't know how to swim you can learn it quickly? Even though he was working hard like a boring gourd, he was amused and said with a smile, the sect leader is now a lively real Taoist priest. Zhang Fenghai agreed to come to the wilderness to tour the mountains and rivers for a clear purpose. First, he must find a chance to meet Bai Zhe. In today's wild world, fame and splendor, reality and whiteness are already recognized facts. In addition, Zhang Fenghai also wants to find 1 or 2 monks from the wild side. The prerequisite is of course that both parties can get along well, and then invite them back to the ancestral mountain Leap Moon Peak and return to Qingming World together. In the peaceful world, the expansion of a sect is accompanied by fancy means to add icing on the cake. In troubled times, only strong soldiers and horses are the foundation for success. For example, the nameless person next to me who is fully qualified to occupy a throne, is an excellent candidate. If you can win over him, win over him. Even if you can't attract him for the time being, you still have to leave a good impression. Anonymous asked, I would like to ask, is there going to be chaos in fellow Taoist's hometown? What if we can convince Mr. Bai to follow fellow Taoists to Liyue Peak, but we can't concentrate on cultivating Taoism? Zhang Fenghai said truthfully, it's not that troubled times are about to come, but it has already turned into a pot of porridge. But I can guarantee that fellow Taoists went to Liyue Peak and just cultivated their souls and cultivated their minds. Anonymous asked with a smile, can you give me a brief explanation? What kind of chaos is it? Smoke is everywhere, a prairie fire? Countless states, all battlefields? The Taoist priest Bai Yujing left the 12th floor of the 5 cities and went to the town in great force. Pressure? Zhang Fenghai said, on the surface the scene is a little more stable than what fellow Taoists said, but in fact it is more chaotic on the inside. Can I give you a rough idea? Anonymous nodded and said, I'm all ears. Aquarius continent is the smallest continent in Hauran, but it is the final place of the war between the 2 worlds. And Yongzhou is the smallest state in the Qingming world. After questioning Bai Yujing alone in the arms of Guansun and Xuandu, Qizhou, and before Wu Shuangjiang, Gao Gu and others asked Yudou, Zhu Xian, the young empress of Yongzhou Yufu dynasty, ignored Bai Yujing's various hints and explicit instructions, insisted on going her own way and acted without permission. A universal altar was opened. According to the ancient method, Zhu Xian, the chief priest, personally climbed onto the altar and chopped the branches of the old camphor tree are used to predict the good and bad luck of the 4 states including Yongzhou. It shows that all 4 states are omens of great misfortune. As soon as this hexagram came out, the world was in an uproar. After learning the result, the Taoist officials in the 4 states were panicked and everyone was in danger. Since God's will is this, those who follow the trend prosper and those who go against the trend perish. Shouldn't we have planned ahead? Aren't the 2 continents of Tongya and Fuyao in the world a lesson? On the other hand, Aquarius Island and the embroidered tiger, aren't they an excellent example of how only those who plan ahead can survive in troubled times? In addition, Jinshi Great Wall cooperates with Confucian Temple. The Confucian Temple is responsible for opening up the colorful world, and Qin Qingdu is responsible for opening the sky with a sword and helping the Ascension City to establish a new world. Only with this retreat can the incense continue. Now the entire Qingming world is like a big oil tank. Once a spark splashes up, if Sun Weishong's sword-asking battle can be considered a personal grudge, even if the old temple master failed in the sword-asking battle and died, Xuanduguan and Qizhou have always exercised restraint. So when Wu Shuangjiang and others asked Bai Yujing, it was no different from an open rebellion. At the boundary of Yuzhou, as the leader of the mountain Daifishan Huayang Palace, together with the Hongnong Yang family, the first wealthy family under the mountain, are more than ready to make a move. It's just that they didn't rise up. As for the Lotus Root Temple built on the top of the underwater mountain range, where the sacred weapon of the country was enshrined, the famous gun-breaking formation, not many people cared about it. After listening to Zhang Fenghai's general narration, Anonymous smiled and asked the biggest question, Is Headmaster Yu so unpopular among you Qingming people? It was difficult for Zhang Fenghai to explain it clearly in a few words. He shook his head and said, "My fellow Taoist will know as soon as he leaves. Hearing with the ears is not as good as seeing with the eyes." Anonymous nodded and said, "I want to take a look. One sleep lasts 10,000 years and I really missed too much." Zhang Fenghai turned to ask Xuanhuan, "What's your impression of Yinguan?" Hard Work said, "I haven't seen it so it's hard to say." Zhang Fenghai said, "Many people have ignored the truth." Hard Work asked curiously, "How to say?" Zhang Fenghai, who goes by the Taoist nickname Ni too, joked, "Straw sandals and clogs were only one step away from the title of co-leader." The ruins of an ancient battlefield that was once the final site of the War of Water and Fire. The two sides of the boxing had already determined the winner, but they still could not tell the difference between life and death. Jiang Shangzhen looked strange and spoke to Cui Dongshan in his heart. "To be disrespectful, is the mountain master so difficult to kill?" Cui Dongshan waved the jade bamboo folding fan vigorously, causing the hair on his temples to flutter wildly. "You also know that these words are disrespectful? As difficult as an alien demon is to deal with, a pure divinity is as difficult to kill. The summary of the former is the pseudo-15th realm that once caused Qingming to sink into the world, while the ultimate of the latter is half of the human world." Jiang Shangzhen had just learned some shocking inside information. For example, the ancestor of the military strategist was far from reaching his peak. On the one hand, the 3 martial arts in his body were causing trouble, making Jiangxi's 11th level of martial arts substandard. In addition, in the eyes of everyone now, Jiangxi's real body was beheaded in one battle and has already been integrated with the 5 martial arts. Therefore, Cui Chan's manipulation of the 3 martial arts is itself a means to prevent Jiangxi from successfully reshaping his true body. So the posture Jiangxi showed now was just a yang god body to inhabit the soul. The crucial yin god was still on its way out of the body and had just gone to the wilderness through a return passage not long ago. And this Yin Shin turned out to be a great master of martial arts who was said to have reached the ultimate godly level. That was a name Jiang Shangzhen had never heard of, Xiaxia. According to Cui Dongshan, Xiaxia is Qin Qinglia's senior sister, so isn't she Zheng Zhezhong's senior sister? Based on this inference, Zheng Zhuzhong and Jiangxi can be considered half of their own talents, right? Jiang Shangzhen saw some clues about this world and asked in his heart, "Is this ruins real or fake?" On the battlefield, Jiangxi could occasionally be seen hitting the wall with his fists, as if he was colliding with some kind of prohibition. Then there was a gorgeous scene of broken glass fragments, revealing a completely different picture of the world. It passed in a flash and the world was very different. It will return to normal soon. It's like this place is a weird place made up of countless pieces of glass intertwined together. Cui Dongshan said, "Fake is of course fake, but it is more real than real." Zheng Zhuzhong is an expert in refining things and has studied deeply. Gu Qian, who has been able to refine a liuxia boat, has only scratched the surface. Jiang Shangzhen glanced at the tilted sky pillar and couldn't help asking, "How is it possible?" Cui Dongshan sighed, "We are all located in the belly of a certain Zheng Zhuzhong. I guess the last Zheng Zhuzhong has already found Xiaxia in the wild world? Or is it in Lingxi City, a night sailing ship?" Jiang Shangzhen was amazed. Becoming an ally with a demonic giant like Mr. Zheng really brings an inexplicable peace of mind. What Jiangxi is curious about is whether Qin Qingdu, who is not stingy as the backbone of the affairs of the Great Wall of Sword Qi for thousands of years, has left Qin Pingan, the last hidden official, a gift that is as big as the bottom of the box, whether it is a reward or a gift. No matter what in name, in terms of emotion and reason, in public and private matters, we should all have the right talents. But this kind of inside story, as long as the person involved doesn't tell it for a day, it will remain a permanent mystery that will never be solved. Cui Dongshan asked, "I'm not curious, why hasn't my husband gone to see his wife to marry him and become a Taoist couple? He still doesn't have a title? Why did the boss Jinxian break his promise and didn't go to the Yao mansion to be a matchmaker in the end?" Of course, Qin Qing didn't think it was beneath his status to help Qin Pingan do such a thing, so he deliberately delayed it. Jiang Shangzhen nodded and said, "I have been confused about this matter for a long time. It is understandable that Qin Pingan did not marry Ning Yao at the Great Sword Qi Wall. After all, the love between children is not greater than the life and death of the entire Sword Qi Great Wall. But when Qin Pingan returned to his hometown, Ning Yao and Fei Xingcheng also established a foothold in the colorful world. Logically speaking, there was nothing to hinder them from becoming a Taoist couple." Jiang Shangzhen thought about it, but there seemed to be only one answer. "Coward?" Qin Lingjun had a different idea. This was a custom in the mountain master's hometown. In a family, the eldest brother must marry before the younger brother can get married. In the eyes of our mountain master, Lu Xianying is of course the eldest brother. Now then we have to talk about this old principle. Fortunately, the Longquan sword sect moved away, otherwise I would have taken care of him and urged Lu Dusui to hurry up every day. Cui Dongshan said something strange without beginning or end. Do you think the little girl named Feng Yuanxiao has a closer relationship with my wife or my husband? Jiang Shangzhen shook his head. I don't dare to talk nonsense about this kind of thing. He only knew that Feng Yuanxiao had a special status. She was the same age as Wuxia Tianxia. By chance, she became the direct disciple of Huang Ting in Taiping Mountain, and she is now in Feishing City. No matter how much Ning Yao and Qin Pingan love each other, as long as they don't establish a relationship for a day, they are not a true Taoist couple after all. Why is it that even though the overall situation of the two worlds has been decided and Howren has changed from a time of decline and chaos to a time of peace and prosperity, Qin Pingan still doesn't rush to propose marriage? Cui Dongshan knew this very well, and he did have a lot of concerns. We must make long-term plans for Master Nyang and Feishing City for thousands of years. Cui Dongshan asked again. Let's change the question to a simpler one. Do you think the old scholar and Bai Yi are closely related to my husband? Jiang Shangzhen said tentatively, more? Cui Dongshan smiled and scolded, Chief Shou, your brain is almost as smart as the genius brother from Xinjiang Mountain. Jiang Shangzhen said aggrievedly, you can ask Jing Qing or Bai Xian this kind of question, but if you ask me you always feel that there is a hidden secret. At the beginning, the Confucian temple found the colorful world and opened up the road. Later the old scholar and Bai Yi holding the Tai Bai sword, cut through the chaos, separated the clear from the turbid, and created the world, and created great rivers and mountains. The old scholar earned a great merit but did not pocket it. In the Battle of Fuyao Island, the fairy sword Tai Bai, in Bai Ye's hand was divided into 4 parts. One of the sword tips will be lost to whose family? Therefore many monks on the mountain top are unaware of one thing, a shocking truth. In fact, Qin Pingan once had the opportunity to replace Ning Yao and become the #1 person in the colorful world. In the end he became the common master of the world like Fei Ran. Zhou ascended to the sky and left, filling the gap in the wild wilderness with great achievements. With Ning Yao's character, if she could know the truth in advance, such as when she reached the Ascension realm, even if Ning Yao already had the prototype of the first person's path, she would still be willing to give up this path for Qin Pingan. But there is another most critical premise here, which is Qin Qingda's choice earlier, as well as some of Qin Pingan's unintentional actions. Indispensable. Otherwise, Qin Qingdu would not have progressed step by step, giving this foreign swordsman more expectations and training time and time again. Cui Dongshan muttered in a low voice, old bastard, don't be a human being. Jiang Shangzhen has long been accustomed to scolding Cui Han whenever he gets an opportunity, and even if he doesn't have the opportunity, he will find an opportunity to scold the old bastard. Cui Dongshan once took Pei Qian to the Sword Qi Great Wall together. Apart from the slight embarrassment when he was chopped off the city wall by the swords of his former junior brother and current senior uncle, Cui Dongshan also went to see the boss sword immortal alone. When Qin Qingdu saw the boy in white for the first time, he called him National Master. The truth is revealed at a glance, due to his strong moral strength. In fact, Cui Chan Yuanshan did secretly inhabit Cui Dongshan at that time. A red mole on the young man's eyebrow is the dojo. When Cui Chan returns to the dojo, there is no need to greet Cui Dongshan at all. Together with the soul, Cui Chan is an extremely expert. For example, he was kept in the dark and failed to see through this matter. It can be said that he is not unfamiliar with his senior brother Cui Chan, and he can't see through the people who are close at hand, let alone the old swordsman Qin Shi and Qi Tingji who can only take a cursory look from a distance. Qin Qing actually noticed some of the small actions Cui Chan and the Great Li dynasty had made on the Great Wall of Jiangxi in the past 100 years, and did not take it lightly. After all, he was the one who passed by the Great Wall of Jiangxi earlier and served as a prison officer for several years. Howren Jiasheng made Qin Qing deeply impressed by Howren Tianxia, the most intelligent scholars. For example, Cui Wei, the apprentice of Nalin Yesheng, the gatekeeper of Ning Mansion, refused to die in frustration and chose to become a Dali spy to find a way out for himself. Qin Qingdu pretended to turn a blind eye to this. Anyway, Cui Wei has not taken refuge in the wilderness, and there is no ambiguity on the battlefield, so he does not cross the bottom line. Of course, there must be some deeper hidden methods. After watching it for decades, he already had a general understanding of Cui Han's style of doing things, so Qin Qingdu stopped staring. In the eyes of different people, the Great Wall of Sword Chi will appear completely opposite, either lifeless or full of vitality. The young man raised his hand toward the outside of the city, twisted his wrist as if holding a pole, and changed his voice. It's really like a fish walk, it takes thousands of years. The Great Wall of Sword Chi could not catch that huge fish, and the fishing rod in hand would not be dragged away, so both sides wasted it. The peaceful world and the vast world and the Great Wall of Sword Chi blocking the barbarism have done a great job. The boss swordsman didn't ask why. The question was very sword-oriented. He even omitted the beginning and the process. He only wanted the result. Chui-chan, please tell me, can you do it? Chui-han's answer was also very embroidered. Qin-Qingdu, do you have a better choice? Since not, then I am the best candidate without a doubt. This time your Sword Chi Great Wall is destined to fail. Stay tuned, the mastermind has made a careful plan, and the wild beasts will definitely invade Howran. I remember that the sage master made an agreement with you sword cultivators, that etiquette is the most important thing, and the Confucian temple still needs face. Yes, then you don't have to worry about what happens after you. The Great Wall of Sword Chi, a battleground for military strategists, still had great uses and should not be left to the barbarians. You need to find someone you can trust to take over the fishing rod. After a moment of pause, Chui-han said, because Qin-Qing doesn't even use his sword, the Savage Monster Clan and I will help you make up for the loss in Aquarius Continent. Qin-Qing clicked his tongue in surprise, so I'm already in such a miserable condition, and I still need Chui-chan, a junior from a foreign land with less than 300 years of Taoism, to help vent my bad anger? I have no intention of obliterating the merits of your group of ancient sword cultivators, especially the eldest swordsman who has survived all the way to this day. I cannot praise you enough. In fact, there are only two criteria for judging the level of cultivation: living long enough and being able to make the enemy monks who originally lived a long life live short. It can be said that things are put to their best use and people are doing their best. The Great Wall of Sword Chi is only very good, but it is still not the best. Hearing this, Qin-Qingdu smiled and said, it's just a good job, a good just. This kind of words only come from a person like Chui-han, so it doesn't feel too harsh. Chui got straight to the point. Old people who are getting older should always make plans for their descendants. It's time for the Great Wall of Sword Chi to find a way out for itself. And this new road must be both legitimate and real. Qin-Qingdu smiled and said, is this master going to a country school to teach Mengtong? Chui Guosher is such a distinguished scholar. If you talk about name and reality with a reckless man like me, will you be undermining your talent? Chui-chang ignored the boss, the sword immortal. He sarcastically said, if we talk about written articles and knowledge in books in a narrow sense, there are a few people on the Great Wall of Sword Chi who dare to flaunt their knowledge. I guess Qinshi is just the head of the academy. As for Sun Jiyuan, they are just arty and are nothing more than the children of aristocratic families who are ignorant and have no skills. Don't blame Howran scholars for thinking you are vulgar and uneducated. Except for books, here are some of the best poems, songs, poems and novels in the world. No matter how heroic, graceful, fairy-like or chivalrous, they are all top-notch. I only talk about the frontier poems of the world, and I am not worthy of carrying shoes for the stories here. It is so exciting that every reader can catch their eye and be enlightened by it. That is to say, no one can write biographies of the swordsman here, otherwise the engravings will be sold. I am willing to go to the wine table in person again and bow down to a fat businessman. Liquor. Chui-chan said with a smile, putting pen to paper and using words to write a book is ultimately a small way. Using life to write a book is the great way, and the true meaning of worldly literature lies. Just pretend you didn't say the first half of the nonsense. Qin-Qingdu reached out and flicked his ear and said, the second half is somewhat fair, so I listened. Chui-chan said calmly, is it insulting to be polite? When did the Great Wall of Sword Chi base its career on a few moral articles? How can it be insulted to be polite? Qin-Qingdu laughed and said, are you scolding again? Chui-chan said, it's better than those half-hearted scholars in Howran Jiuzhou who claim to be gentle and polite. They rush to the gates of the powerful, pay homage to princes and ministers, have weak knees and talk to others, seemingly aloof. In fact, the mouth is flush with the egg bag in someone else's crotch. Being treated with a few polite words by the big shot, and being complimented by others casually, my face glowed red, I secretly rejoiced, I forced myself to be calm, and when I walked out of the door even I was happy. Qin-Qing was speechless for a moment, unable to answer the question at all. When it comes to swearing, they are really better at it as scholars. I've wanted to come here for a long time. Chui-han said, When I left the literary saint lineage, I actually thought about whether to come to the Great Wall of Sword Chi to settle down. Returning to my hometown of Aquarius Continent to assist the Song family of Dali was not my first choice. Qin Shengdu smiled and said, "Is there such a thing? You should have come. Why did you regret it temporarily?" Cui Han said, "It's useless to talk more." Qin Shengdu said to himself, "It would be interesting if you came to the Great Wall of Sword Chi. Shao Sun will obey you, Hao Su will respect you, and one of you will not be full of resentment. One is willing to go out and pass the sword to kill the monster. You can even be the prison official and the hidden official. Shoulder carry. Someone has done all the dirty work and conspiracies. I believe it will be much easier for me." Cui Han then said, "I'm afraid that when I get here, I will change my original intention. I'm afraid that the Great Wall of Sword Chi, which is completely different from Haoren, will go to the other extreme and become barbaric." Qin Shengdu asked with a smile, "Are you worried that if you become a comrade with Zhou for your own selfish interests, even if you end up turning the world upside down and achieving your wish, you will still become a sinner for the ages?" Cui Chan shook his head and said, "What your posthumous name is, whether it is good or bad, present or absent, is not within my scope of consideration." Cui Chan smiled and said, "I would like to express my gratitude to Cui Chan for trusting Qin Pingan so much and daring to place his hopes on a young man of low level." Qin Qing smiled but said, "In what capacity are you thanking me? The unique Dali Xiuhu, or the senior brother Cui Chan who deceived his master and destroyed his ancestors?" Cui Chin said, "It's up to you." Qin Qingdu said, "Cui Chan, I have to give you a reason to convince myself. In ancient times, sword cultivators ascended to heaven first, followed closely by scholars. Cui Yi said, today is different from the past, but Qin Qing is willing to die first, and Cui Yi is willing to die last. The way you and I exit may be a bit dull, but the ending will definitely not be too bad." Qin Qingdu smiled and said, "All the saints have died in ancient times, but heroes are not lonely. You and I are destined not to be saints, but heroes can barely make up the numbers?" Cui Chan said, "In terms of work, Cui Chan is quite conceited and does not lose to anyone. Unfortunately, in terms of people, I don't have a Liang's face and enthusiasm, nor do I have Qin Pingan's patience and kindness. This is a common problem for people like Zheng Juzhong and I. It is difficult for us to have too high expectations for the world and human nature. Therefore, in our eyes we can hardly see people, only things. I have a suggestion. It will be beneficial to the Bosch Jianxian, Ningyao, the Great Wall of Sword Chi, and the world situation." Qin Qingdu became interested. "Tell me about it." Cui Yi gave a concise answer. "Since you have chosen him as the successor of swordsmanship, don't be soft-hearted. Since you are cruel, you will be cruel to the end." Qin Qing couldn't help but laugh. "Okay, everyone seems to have taken advantage. Isn't that guy the only one?" Qin Qing couldn't help but tease him. "Is there anyone in the world who is as senior as you?" Cui Chan said calmly, "Maybe he was lucky enough to find a senior brother like me." After a moment of silence, Cui Han said, "If Nin Yao is the most exquisite porcelain on your Sword Chi Great Wall, don't let Qin Pingan become a shabby sagger that is thrown away after use." Qin Qingdu smiled and said, "This is the first time I have heard of this metaphor. Mr. Cui can rest assured on this matter." Cui Chan copied what Qin Qingdu said, "Senior always gives me a reason to convince myself. It's just more subtle, both parties change their names with tacit understanding." Qin Qingdu didn't seem to be very good at saying such words. He stretched out his hand to rub his cheek and after thinking for a long time he gave an answer, "I am willing to give Qin Pingan the highest expectations." Unexpectedly, Cui Han didn't appreciate it. "It's empty. It's not enough." Qin Qingdu was obviously a little annoyed and blurted out, "How can anyone be qualified to carry Qin Qingda's sword? Is this true enough?" Cui Chang smiled and nodded, "It's a sincere statement. It's enough." The next moment, Cui Han removed his mind and gave way to Cui Dongshan. The old man put his hands behind his back and looked into the distance with the young man. "I wonder if anyone will remember Qin Qingdu who used the sword and Cui Chan who was a scholar." The handsome young man in loose clothes and long sleeves was sitting on the top of the city, as if a white cloud was resting here for a moment. He gently slapped his knees with his hands and hummed an ancient song. So many people and things in the world are ignored. Sword of Coming Chapter 1149. The Taoist temple's newly received mountain guard was enshrined. Guha, the guard, was keenly aware of a ripple of energy outside the temple. As part of his duty, he immediately strode out of the wing to meet the man for a while. "I saw this new gatekeeper of the Taoist temple. wearing a purple gold crown, a long light crimson silk coat, a treasure armor underneath, a sapphire belt around his waist, and a powerful black mace in his hand. He, standing on the steps, his eyes flashing, said sternly, "Who is coming? Tell me your name. Stop quickly. If you dare to be good at this view, be careful of your head rolling to the ground." The uninvited guest was an elegant old man in a long blue gown. His moral power could not be seen for the time being. He did not look like a big shot, but more like an old scholar in a study and a guest of a state or county magistrate. The man heard Gu He's threat and said nothing. He just glanced at the unfamiliar face of the Taoist temple. However, Gu He just thought that the other party was shocked by him, and he felt a little complacent in his heart. He took a few glances at this man in green shirt who was trying to calm himself down. He had thin arms and thin legs, so don't be frightened by the Taoist master. Wang Yuanlu, who is as thin as a bamboo pole, as the first disciple of the temple master, has previously reminded Gu He about hospitality. Those who come here are guests. Those who can ride the wind all the way here to become familiar faces, or they come because of their reputation. Either we are old acquaintances with master, so there is no need to hurt the harmony. If you can help report it, and if it is the worst, record it in the book and then summarize it later, let master take a look at it and have an idea. However, Gu He always felt that such a soft style was not a good taste. The formation was too small and the arrangement was not enough. It is not worthy of the name of Guandao Temple and the name of Bixiao Cave Master. Together with fellow Taoist Jingjing, I came up with such a more shocking opening statement. This is called a head start. Taoist officials all over the world know that the threshold of this place is high. Although Gu He likes to show off, he has no intention of using the situation to bully others. That would be too cheap. Seeing that the uninvited visitor showed no sign of contradicting or offending him, he spoke a little more tactfully. "Young man, don't pretend to be deaf and dumb. The rules of my dojo are very strict. People who are idle should not regard this place as a tourist place. You, the young man, have accidentally offended my temple master, Xianxia, and you can't bear to walk around. I have said harsh words and I have said good things. If this guy doesn't understand the importance and still doesn't appreciate it, it would be more lively if there is an extra handyman in the Taoist temple and he and fellow Taoist Jingjing become brothers." The young Taoist boy heard the sound and rushed over. When he saw the expressionless guest in green clothes outside the door, he felt as if he had seen a ghost. Sun Lanling was so polite, he bowed respectfully and called Senior Qingzhu. "Don't forget to wish you longevity without borders." Chen Qinglu smiled playfully and just nodded in greeting. Gu He hurriedly asked in his heart, "Fellow Taoist Jingjing, is it possible that this visitor is an extremely capable person?" Before Gu He could make up his mind, the young Taoist boy had no time to explain. The old temple master holding the scorpion tail in his hand had already walked out of the hall and came straight to this side. When he arrived at the entrance of the Taoist temple, he walked down the steps and passed by Gu He in the process. "When passing by, I would like to remind you, you owe Pindao a higher level." Gu He's body became stiff as if struck by lightning. "The man named Lu previously lied to me and said that you, master, had already reached the 15th realm. With my innocent heart, I believed it to be true. How could I not have reached the realm?" After walking down the steps to greet the guests and walking up to Chen Qinglu, the old temple master asked with a smile, "Friend Qingzhu, have you reported this trip to the Zhongtu Confucian temple? With Chen Qinglia's swordsmanship, it is easy to cross the world, especially when it involves the long river of time, which is Chen Qinglia's specialty. Therefore this question has the meaning of deliberately exposing the shortcomings." Chen Qinglu smiled and said, "Of course it needs to be reported. Nowadays, the rules of the Confucian temple are as important as those of Bixiao Taoist temple. I'm no longer a fool. My ambitions are declining year by year, and my hair is getting grayer. Now that I am getting older, I have to obey. Not to mention that after 3,000 years of practicing Taoism, my realm has stagnated and my Taoist power has not improved at all. I occasionally go out to visit old friends. I have no shame in showing off to an employer like the Confucian temple. I can only take a leave of absence for a few days." Gu Hideo's heart was shocked. "Good fellow, are you suing him face to face? Why, now the monks on Howren's side, with Chen Pingan in front of them and the Qing master, in front of them behind them, are they all so vindictive and petty?" The old temple master said with emotion. The former Qingzhu Taoist friend was so high-spirited and high-spirited. There were no barriers or restrictions in his eyes. Chen Qinglu didn't take it seriously. A good man doesn't mention his former bravery. The old temple leader asked, "Since you have been to the wilderness, have you met the Taoist monks of the temple?" Chen Qinglu nodded and said, The relationship is normal, the conversation is not speculative, just a few small talk. The old temple master smiled and said, "The temple of Kai Tian is made of ground, and the Qing master of dragon slaying is restrained. What kind of friends does this poor Taoist have?" Chen Qinglu seemed to say casually, "From hatred to pity, from love to hatred, this cause and effect is bound, the world's road has become a dead end, and I need to borrow stones from other mountains to attack Jade. Lu Chen has made many mistakes for me. When I was young, I saw the world as a straight line, straightforward, simple and clear. When you are in your prime, the world you live in becomes a mess, entangled with love and hate, and everything becomes a mess." Gu He heard it like falling into the clouds, but Sun Lanling knew how powerful it was. Chen Qinglius' understatement of dozens of words revealed the antecedents, processes and consequences of the dragon-slaying battle 3,000 years ago. The old temple leader took the lead to move, and took Chen Qinglu with him to shrink down at will, as if he was trying to choose a place that was the best place to enjoy the view of the human world, and said slowly, "Those who have achieved enlightenment on their own have always been rare, and those who rely on external forces to escape catastrophe have been common." On the same line, Chen Qinglu took the cause and effect, and Qi Jingchun provoked the disaster. It started well and ended well. It's no wonder that you met and fell in love. It turns out that you are heartfelt comrades. Chen Qinglu said, "It's a pity that Mr. Qi's junior brother didn't listen to the advice and refused to stay out of the matter. He always wanted to face the difficulties so that he could live up to others' expectations." The old temple master smiled and said, "Young people are like this, they should set their first-class aspirations." Chen Qinglu said, "When there are more young people, the world becomes older." The old temple leader asked, "There are some things that cannot be avoided. Have you thought about how to solve them?" Chen Qinglu stretched out his thumb and rubbed the center of his brow. "Senior Sister Xie and that evil disciple, each has a more violent temper than the other. How can I control them?" On the side of Bixiao Cave Master, who knew each other well, Chen Qinglu was too lazy to hide it, and there was no family scandal that should not be made public. Think back to those days. The mighty ancient and modern, the green shirt is the same. The wind drives the sea and the waves stand tall. The immortal king throws his sword and hits the water thousands of miles away. When a common man is angry, all rivers boil. At the entrance of the Taoist temple, Wang Yuanlu squatted on the steps with his hands in his sleeves and asked softly, "Brother Jinjing, who can let our master be so kind and take the initiative to go out to greet you?" The Xiaohua boy, who was fearless, was afraid of the senior Qingzhu. He could only say vaguely, "This person is extremely skilled in swordsmanship and has a strong murderous intention, but he likes to think of himself as a scholar. The dojo is still in Tongya. When I was in Taiwan, I would change my appearance and identity every once in a while and take the initiative to visit our Taoist temple. Master was particularly fond of this fellow Taoist and we talked a lot with him every time we got together." Gu He said cautiously, "Fellow Taoist Jinjing, did I kick the iron plate?" Sun Lanling glared and said, "You blame me? Master Dao told you not to fall short of the authority of my master. He didn't mean that you have no eyesight at all and dare to yell at anyone you see." Gu He complained that no one could blame Taoist Jinjing. He pretended to be heroic and said with a carefree smile, "This account will only be recorded on Taoist Master's head." Wang Yuanlu nodded. He was a brave and righteous man. If there was a chance in the future, he could join Qigu and the three of them would travel to various states together. In the past, he was the one who took the blame for Qigu and suffered a lot. If he could find someone who was willing to take the blame, why not do it? After finally choosing a perfect location, the old viewer looked at the world, sighing, and asked, "Then we who have nothing to do, are allowed to have the courage to condescend and bid farewell to a leisurely journey on Earth? This was the reason why I came here." Chen Qinglu nodded and said, "I'm very lucky. There once was a young man in white clothes, pointing to the sky, and spoke some sincere words. There are always one or two cranes neighing higher in the sky, far away from the ground, but it makes people feel sad. I've seen it and heard it and it's hard to forget. Difei Mountain in Yuzhou is not only the ancestral home of the Fulu sect, but also the Taoist priests' attainments in alchemy, which are unparalleled in the world and are worthy of their reputation." The tall young Taoist priest felt a little moved in his heart, so he put down a Taoist book in his hand, walked out of the building and looked at the sea of clouds in the mountains. Occasionally, groups of cranes glided out of the white clouds and flew into the blue sky. Difei Mountain, the first of the 72 blessed places in the world, also has a sixth cave. This mountain is like a Taoist who has perfected his merits and conforms to the way of heaven, and can breathe and refine qi on his own. The spiritual energy of a state gathers here on its own initiative, just like ministers coming here to pay homage to the 9-5 Lord. The spiritual energy of mountains and rivers gathers into seas of clouds, gathering and dispersing regularly, and is tempered into streams of majestic Taoism. Taoist priests can practice here and feel like God is helping them all the time, so they can naturally get twice the result with half the effort. What a rare paradise in the world, a well-deserved Taoist holy land. Even someone as conceited as him would feel that occupying this place would be unworthy of his position. An old Taoist priest came here and saw the young palace master who had no idea. He stopped and bowed his head and said with an apologetic expression, "Zuiwei Palace Xian, pay your respects to the palace master. There is a distinguished guest in the mountain and it is Hongnon." A group of young people from the Yang family led by names asked to see the palace master. They said that they had something to discuss and it was very important. Xian had neglected his duty and caused the palace master to be distracted. Mao Jue ignored Xian's polite words, frowned slightly and laughed at himself. How can a bunch of young boys talk about serious business with a palace master in name only, about what Bai Yujing will do without Daozu? How to get Xian to answer this? Mao Jue said, "Xian, tell them directly that I won't see any visitors in the near future. If they are sensible they can stay in the mountain and enjoy the scenery. If there is any further entanglement they will go down the mountain directly." Xian stopped talking. The territory of Yuzhou Huayang Palace, Shoshan Pavilion, and the Yang family of Hongnong are three pillars. Their relationship has always been good. They have not concluded a paper alliance, but they are better than allies. In particular, Gao Gu's most valued disciple was from the Yang family of Hongnong. With this layer of incense and love, the harmony between the mountains and the surnames was even more harmonious. Taoist priests had their first choice when joining the world and visiting immortals in the mountains. Xian said, "There are strange people and strangers hidden in the team going up the mountain." Mao Jue said calmly, "Troublesome? Then let Gao Fu hold the talisman sword and invite the Tai Mountain God." Tai Mountain God is the landlord of Difei Mountain and the protector of Huayang Palace. When Xian heard this he looked troubled. Even when the master was alive, the mountain with a high status would not disturb him as long as he could. He was always regarded as a fellow Taoist and had no precedent of dispatching or driving him. Although junior brother Gao is now the legitimate lord of the mountain, it is really difficult for Xian to ask Gao Fu to hold a token to ask the gods to come out of the mountain, and he will never be able to do so. Mao Jue smiled sarcastically and asked, "If Gao Fu is in trouble, then it's up to you to do it yourself. Since when does the master of Huayang Palace have to look at other people's faces whether he sees guests or not?" This tall young Taoist priest, as an outsider, had just settled in the Huayang Palace genealogy, and inexplicably transformed into the contemporary owner of the Huayang Palace. But the founder, Gao Gu, had been in power for 3,000 years and had such great authority that no one dared to question Gao Gu's decision. The previous meeting in the Patriarch Hall, which lacked the Patriarch and added a strange young man, was without any disturbance. The entire Difei Mountain also had no objections to Gao Fu taking over as the mountain leader. There is no quarrel or fuss, the clouds are calm and the wind is gentle, they practice their own practices and they are still pure. Xian nodded and said, "I will go and entertain the guests myself." Mao Jue said, "If Gao Gu dies, outsiders will not take the decree of the master of Huayang Palace seriously." Xian was shocked when he heard this and said in a deep voice, "That's right." Mao Jue sighed in his heart. Xian respected his master the most, so he used this to stimulate the general and hit his weak spot. Even if the realm is as high as Xian, it is still difficult to completely cut off the world of mortals. People who practice Taoism have worries in their hearts like the sun and the moon hanging in the sky. Outside the mountain, there is the world of mortals, and in the mountain there is the entanglement of cause and effect of the Taoist people in the mountain. Before Gao Gu asked Bai Yujing, he left 2 palace master tokens and a secret letter, and asked Xian, a direct disciple of Zuiwei Palace, the abbot's affairs, to be responsible for announcing the contents of the secret letter and giving it to him. The talisman sword symbolizing the legal tradition of Daifishan Mountain was handed over to the new mountain owner Gao Fu, and at the same time, a robe representing the legal system of Huayang Palace was passed on to the palace owner Mao Jue. Gao Fu, who succeeded the mountain lord and commanded dozens of large and small channels in the entire Difei Mountain, has just entered the Jade Pu realm. The so-called talent does not mean that Gao Fu is too old or that his realm is high or low. But as the mountain master of Difei Mountain he is only in the Jade Pu realm, which is a bit unsatisfactory. Fortunately, Mao Jue, who took over the Huayang Palace, was an ascendant with profound Tao power. This matter also takes a lot of thinking. Those Taoist priests who have been established in Difei Mountain for many years but are still independent from Huayang Palace can't figure out why Grandmaster Gao's arrangement has not been reversed. The Mountain Master and the Palace Master identity swap. It should be said that Yin Xian, the Heavenly Lord of Cuiwei Palace, is not only the direct disciple of Gao Gu, but also the person in charge of all external affairs of Difei Mountain. He is highly respected and has always served the public. Nowadays, many Taoist officials from various sects in the mountains who are familiar with Cuiwei Palace want to fight for Yin Xian in private. Why isn't this old heavenly king shouldering the unification of Fatong Taoism? Mao Jue didn't even know what Gao Gu was thinking when he, a newcomer who had just arrived from outside, became the master of Huayang Palace. Was he really not afraid that he would mess up and lose his family fortune overnight? The problem is that Mao Jue, as the White Bone Master, has no hatred or resentment towards the White Jade capital. He is just one of Lu Chen's friends. How could he take the initiative to find trouble for Bai Yujing before it was too late to avoid the real Master Lu Chen a few years ago? Or maybe Gao Gu was unexpected and chose to entrust him to him. This was some kind of statement and message to Dao ancestor in this Qingming world? Precisely because Zhuxiaguan Taoist priest Mao Zue is involved with Lu Chen and Nanhua City, he is the best candidate? Will this understanding of Gao Gu's intention misinterpret the profound meaning? Maybe this is the problem Gao Gu deliberately left for Mao Zhu? Yin Xian had made up his mind and had no worries anymore. He took this opportunity to talk to the new palace master about some important matters concisely and to the point, hoping that Mao Zue would make a decision. Even if Mao Zue heard it, even if he turned a blind eye or ignored it, it was still a decision. Yin Xian asked, Nanqiang's retreat is very likely to be successful. Does the palace owner want to meet her guardian of the mountain pavilion? Huayang Palace also has a line of sword immortals, which has been passed down continuously, but compared to the line of sword immortals in Xuandu Temple, it is slightly dim and has not been able to carry forward. On the south wall of the female crown, the abbot de Mugwen, the bottleneck sword repairer in the Yupu realm, is in retreat. The protector of this female sword fairy is not a certain patriarch of Huayang Palace, but a Shoshan pavilion from another sect in the same state. Mao Zue shook his head and said, No. This kind of personal friendship on the mountain just grows on its own. Yin Xian nodded in agreement without any delay and changed the topic. Recently, on the border between the two states, soldiers from several countries and other states have been quarreling with each other in an attempt to start a war. How should the disciples of Huayang Palace who have been stationed there all year round make a decision? Follow the story and act as usual, or? Mao Jue said, Directly give a secret decree to all registered Taoist officials who hold important positions in the temples in the major dynasties. Without the clear will of the Zhuxitang, no one is allowed to use troops. Yin Xian explained in a low voice, Palace Master, I guess there may not be one or two forces among them. They want to add fuel to the flames and help Huayang Palace, so that our descendants can become famous. Therefore their move is equivalent to submit a petition to us. Mao Zue said, I know, but there is no need to appreciate it. How the Taoist priests of Huayang Palace should practice and when they should enter the world are not things they can guess casually. Yin Xian stopped talking. Mao Zue said, Only names and tools, don't fake people. The first one to receive the order is your Cuiwei Palace. Yin Xian smiled bitterly, took 3 steps back and said, Yin Xian will obey the law. After straightening up and raising his head, Yin Xian looked at the tall young man with an indifferent expression. Mao Zue understood the idea and said with an expression as usual, If you want to do something in your position now that you are the master of the palace, no matter how great a great Gao Gu is, it still cannot affect the survival of the entire Huayang Palace. But this does not mean that Gao Gu, when Gus's body and soul are gone, Huayang Palace and Daifishan Mountain will be removed with a single stroke. When I am free to practice Taoism, I am most afraid of trouble, but when serious things come, I am not afraid of trouble. You know, the world is going to be in chaos, how should Huayang Palace deal with it? When the time is right, I will give you the justice you deserve, and Bai Yujing will give it to you. A noble person must be lonely. Gao Gu, this name is really appropriate. He has a high Taoism and a noble character. He does not rely on external forces on the way to practice, and he also insists on pursuing his own way in doing things. After taking this reassurance, Yin Xian burst into tears and bowed his head, but was speechless to show his gratitude. Mao Zue reminded, Remember to restrain the Taoist officials of all channels in Daifishan Mountain and don't bother to explore the roots of Xuanhuan. As for the fact that he is Master Baigu, only a few people in Difei Mountain, including Yin Xian and Gao Fu, know the truth for the time being. Of course, Mao Zhui didn't think there was anything shady about his background, but he was afraid that someone with ulterior motives would take the opportunity to make a fuss about it. In troubled times, one has to dare to be the first, go on a rampage or bet big and rely on one's life to find a way to the Xuanhuan road. Or simply don't gamble on the illusory destiny and wait patiently for a certain point. Xianxia was horrified in his heart. How could a Taoist official in the mountain behave like this? He quickly went to the police again and apologized. "Don't worry, Palace Master, I will investigate this matter strictly and there will be no ambiguity." Mao Zhui said, "After all, this matter involves the housework of Daifishan Mountain. Once it is verified, you can decide whether to be dealt with leniently or severely. I only want to see whether the result is clear or not. After this beating, if someone does it again, I'm going to ask you directly, don't blame me for being the master of the palace and giving orders to the entire Tsuiwei Palace." Xianxia smiled casually and said, "Palace Master, you can rest assured. The laws and regulations of the Patriarch Hall of our Huayang Palace have always been greater than some of the conventions of Difei Mountain. If you don't use them normally, it's a matter of affection and kindness. If you use them, it's a rule." "Will." Mao Zhu nodded. Don't underestimate the ability and majesty of a Taoist heavenly king just because Xianxia is respectful to Mao Zhui. If he comes down from the mountain, he will walk the world as a teacher. It has always been extremely difficult for Bai Yujing to intervene in specific affairs in Yuzhou. As the second in command of Difei Mountain, Xianxia's actions outside the mountain are to act on behalf of heaven. Mao Zhui said, "It doesn't hurt to stand and talk. You are burdened with daily responsibilities all year round and cannot shirk your duties. It is difficult for you to concentrate on polishing your body. But you still need to take some time off from your busy schedule. We need to hurry up when it comes to attaining enlightenment and ascension." Xianxia smiled and nodded. "The Palace Master has a heart, so it should be so." Mao Zhui asked abruptly, "Do you still remember the way you went up the mountain for the first time?" Xianxia recalled the past and murmured, "The memory is still fresh." Being able to become the master's direct descendant has always been Xianxia's greatest pride in his life. Small cultivation is in the mountains while major cultivation is in the world. The ashram in the mountains makes you feel at ease, while the world of mortals allows you to see your heart. You can only see thousands of minds by practicing in the world, but it is difficult to calm your mind. You can only see one mind by practicing in the mountains, and you cannot understand the heavenly mind. Both are indispensable. Xianxia, you were taken up the mountain to practice by Gaogu when you were young, but you didn't know that your way is at the foot of the mountain. At that time, Gaogu intentionally or unintentionally asked you to accompany him on the way down the mountain. The master led him to practice on his own. After that, it was all up to the disciple to realize it. It's a pity that you only cared about sadness and failed to appreciate Gaogu's kindness. Be careful. Since you admire Master Yashanlin, why not go to him for a drink and take a look at the customs of the Qijin dynasty along the way? If you feel that the Taoism in some parts of Yaoqing is open to question, go to the Qingshan dynasty to discuss Taoism. Why bother to divide it? Whether you want to win or lose, you can experience the colorful clothes and angry horses of the Wuling young people, and see with your own eyes the academic pursuits of Taoist officials from Hansu. I really want to see the most proud man in the world, so I went to Qizhou. Go to Xuandu to knock on doors, say a word of poetry in person, walk in the countryside and ask for a bowl of water from the local people, and listen to the trackers chant. During this period, whether you change your identity or appearance, just be free, and do whatever you want. If the Qingming world lacks Taoist ancestors, the cycle of Tao will continue like this. If Huayang Palace lacks Xianxia to preside over affairs, it will definitely not work. I don't think so. Xianxia stayed for a moment and suddenly said, "Be taught. Harry Cohn has other ideas." At the Zhuolu site of the ancient battlefield, there was a long-standing debt and a long-standing relationship that had to be entrusted to Mao Zhui. When he was free, he went to settle the knot with a female crown who had changed her appearance and returned to her old place. Mao Zhui knew very well that the reason why Zhuolu fell into ruins was due to Gao Gus's mountaintop battle with a female crown. As for how to resolve the grievances, Mao Zhui didn't need to worry about it. Gao Gu left a secret letter and Mao Zhui only had to pass it on to her. Mao Zhui suddenly explained, "I didn't go out this time just to take a look at the Hongnong Yang family's children. You are not yet enlightened enough to notice this." In the previous bright moon, Luchin didn't know why, but it showed an unprecedented huge Dharma form, making the entire Qingming world as small as a country drying barn. The Taoist priest looked down at the earth as if he was looking for something. Wearing a lotus crown on the head, It contains the majestic Taoist meaning flowing down the world like a waterfall, scattering billions of golden lights like a net across the 14 states. The key is that a time-honored immortal like Yin Xian, who has profound Taoist power and almost complete merits and virtues, is completely unaware of it. Yin Xian asked doubtfully, "Can I ask about this?" Mao Zhui hesitated for a moment, then revealed the secret in his heart. Lu Chen's realm has reached a new level. Yin Xian was speechless, his Taoist heart was shaken, his face was full of astonishment, he was shocked beyond measure. Master Lu has already reached the perfection of the 14th realm, how can he go further? I heard that in the newly built sect at Leap Moon Peak, the sect advocated that Feng Hai and his party had just left Qingming World and traveled to the wild wilderness. Wu Fu followed them hard and left. Could it be that Headmaster Lu took this opportunity? As for the hard work at Leap Moon Peak, even the monks at the top of the mountain only know the inside story. Normal people in the Ascension realm would not be able to learn about this matter. The reason why Yin Xian knows more is thanks to his master. Mao Zhui instantly guessed Yin Xian's thoughts, shook his head and said, "Then you underestimated Lu Chen's ways." The graceful lone crane chirps in the blue sky. How lonely. During the busy farming season, the village school is on holiday. The children are very happy that they don't have to go to school for several days, but they are a little depressed because they have to do this and that at home. Master Jiang is not at the school, and Ning Ji and his senior brother Zhao Shuxia have been helping the Mengtong families recently, so it is always okay to have a meal or two. After a busy day, the brothers were walking among the fields. They planned to open a small stove today, cut a piece of bacon, chop it, cook dried bamboo shoots, and stir-fry a few plates of seasonal wild vegetables. I saw yellow birds flying in the fields, sometimes rising and falling, gathering and scattering. Ning Ji remembered a poem for no reason. The words were simple and beautifully written, like a catchy nursery rhyme. Draw your sword and draw a net, and the oriole will fly. Flying across the sky, come and thank the young man. Zhao Shuxia and Ning Ji stopped almost at the same time. I saw two people standing side by the river from a distance, as if they were waiting for something to happen. Judging from his demeanor, he is definitely an expert in Taoism who came from the immortal cave. Zhao gathered their voices under the tree and whispered, "Ning Ji, something is wrong. It is difficult to distinguish between friends and foes. I have informed Wei Xinjun from my heart. Before Wei Xinjun arrives, if there is a dispute later, I will deliberately speak softly and beg for mercy. It seems that you are using the name of Master to scare people. At this moment, you will not hesitate to sacrifice the 3 mountain talismans and return to Luoluo Mountain first." Ning Ji remained silent. Zhao Shuxia said, "Listen to senior brother." Ning Ji nodded. Under the Zhao tree, Ning Ji. After the man in white robe directly called out their names, he smiled and said, "Wei Bo won't come, so don't waste the 3 mountain talisman. There's no need to be nervous, it's useless to be nervous. Ning Ji, learn more from your senior brother. When facing the enemy, you need to be murderous and be able to hide your murderous intent." The man introduced, "My name is Zheng Juzhong and I come from Baidi City. The person next to me, temporarily named Lu Shi, was born from the manifestation of the great Tao of the world. In the historical illusions compiled by Master Lu, he and the Holy Master the one who's not easy to deal with." After looking at the child intently for a few times, Lu Shi nodded and it turned out to be this person. Zhao Shuxia felt a little relieved, while Ning Ji felt relieved and had a complicated look on his face. Zheng Juzhong explained, "Lu Shi mentioned this place in words earlier and he just stopped by to see you. Lu Shi has something to say and I have something to do." Lu Shi smiled and said, "I believe that with Mr. Zheng's mind, there is no need to deceive you, right?" Zheng Juzhong smiled and said, "It's not always the case if something really happens." Lu Shi said, "After you have listened to what I said today, you can relay it to Chen Pingan." Zhao Shuxia looked solemn and said, "Mr. Lu, please speak." Lu Shi said slowly, "Haoran and I, as well as several so-called Taoist friends, all have a good impression of Chen Pingan. Just talking about this hurdle, it will be difficult for Mr. Zheng to pass. This has little to do with the level of realm. There is no love or hate for no reason in the world. First there was Shujian Lake, and then your husband's attitude towards Feng Yuanxiao and student Ning Ji from Colorful World gradually gave me confidence. The most important thing is that your husband is still very young. On the other hand, Mr. Zheng and Palace Master Wu, to put it nicely, their Taoist hearts are as solid as a rock. To put it harshly, they each have their own paths to follow. As the saying goes, the ship will turn around in disaster. Ning Ji, we can see infinite possibilities in your husband, and there is a path that can be continuously corrected and gradually improved. They say that he likes to deny himself and his self-awareness is too thin, but in my opinion that's a huge advantage. During the discussion at the Chinese Confucian temple, the two worlds were facing each other. As the first person to talk about starting a fight, Qin Pingan was slow to go to the wild battlefield to make contributions. It was inevitable that his merits and deeds would be compromised. That is to say, the people in charge of the Confucian temple now are the old scholars who have restored their divine status. In addition, in the Tianwai battle led by Li Sheng, Mr. Sanshan Jiuho and Zheng Juzhong all appeared. Qin Pingan contributed a lot, even if the Confucian temple deliberately downplayed it. Howren Shanding was still well aware of this matter and recognized that the young hermit official was not someone who could rest on his laurels. Otherwise, the 6 Howren continents besides Aquarius continent and Beiju Lu continent will only be criticized more. What's more, the establishment of a sect in Tonggishao and the construction of a large tunnel are indeed very big things. Before the Holy Master left the Taoism, he also came to Tonggishao, accompanied by Lu Yen, to witness Qin Pingan's invitation to many other continents. The incense paid tribute to the gods of mountains and rivers is willing to scatter all the merits, just like lighting hundreds of millions of lights in the mountains and rivers of a continent at night. Of course Lu Shi would not turn a blind eye. This is one of the intentions of the Holy Master. It was as if he was having a distant conversation with Lu Shi, neighbor and fellow Taoist. Don't be discouraged, just take another look. He was the last hidden official, and he was the abbot who fought on the Great Wall of Swordqi. He is the ancestral palace of the Chinese military strategists, and those martial temples that honor famous generals all have a good impression of Qin Pingan. Especially those dealing with the cross-continental ferry stewards are more favorable in the eyes of many caring people. He is both a pure martial artist and a swordsman. He is not only a member of the Confucian tradition of the literary sage, but also the founder of the sect in the mountains. Ning Yao and Fei Ran are recognized by their respective avenues and are the #1 people in the world in both name and reality. As the co-owners of the world, their status is the biggest talisman in the world. To be hostile to it is to contend with a great avenue of heaven and earth. Whether it's me, the wild dial, or the colorful Yuan Shao, our Taoist heart is the heavenly heart. By extension, Mr. Zheng originally had an unrealistic idea. Since I didn't dare to agree, I won't mention it today. The accomplished Taoist cultivators on the top of the mountain will have a feeling that the Tao is not a dead thing, it has its own likes and dislikes. As the old saying goes, the soil and water nourish the people. The water and soil in different places have their own properties, and the 5 mountains have different soil properties. For example, the 3 rivers that converge in Hangzhou town have completely different water properties. Lu Fang was also afraid that Jiangxi would regroup and lead his troops to do it all over again, which would cause the earth to collapse, smoke to be everywhere, all things in the world to wither, and all life to be in ruins. Jiangxi, the first ancestor of the military strategist, or Zhou Shi, a former literary master, must use their own avenues to exchange for eternal peace with the temporary mountains and rivers shattered like floating catkins, using meticulous methods and ruthless means to pursue once and for all. However, as manifestations of the great avenues of heaven and earth, in the eyes of existences like Lu Shi and others, a great account book is not calculated in this way. They must be responsible for all living beings now. Lu Fang, who once competed with the most holy master in Howren Xianxia, worked hard as a martial artist at Leap Moon Peak, and became a Taoist couple with Fei Ran not long ago. Feng Yuan Shao, who is still a little girl in the colorful world, is a Buddhist in the West, a literary monk who travels through mountains and rivers carrying a Buddhist altar. Cultivating the Taoism is even more about materials, not to mention the use of troops. The soldiers and horses go ahead with food and fodder before they are used. The preparation of soldiers' pay and food, and the deployment of manpower, material and financial resources are all drawn from heaven and earth. Since ancient times, sacrifice requires sacrifices to reward gods. It's like 2 people. One said, you have to lend me a copper coin and you can earn a few taels of silver tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, but the other only cares about the money in your pocket today. How to discuss business. How to reach agreement. Therefore, this almost irreconcilable fundamental difference is another kind of dispute between the two. Sword of Coming Chapter 1150. The top of the main peak of Defei Mountain is shaped like a jade guide, and the Huayang Palace Patriarch Hall was built here. Not far away from the Patriarch Hall of Huayang Palace, it was once the place where the first Patriarch Jiamao studied. It was gradually expanded into a private residence with clusters of buildings. By the time it passed to the hands of the previous palace owner Gao Gu, it was already a well-established residence. According to the tradition of the virtuous live here and inherit the Taoism, whoever can serve as the palace master can move his family here, which is both a Taoist temple and a family home. When Xianxia succeeded to the throne, he moved out of the old dojo and took over this place. However, because Xianxia had no family members and heirs, he was alone, so the dojo here was always deserted. However, no matter how the house expanded and the owners changed from generation to generation, it was never overtaken by the guests. The one that occupied the main position was still the 10,000-volume library, which houses many spiritual books and secrets. The plaque reads, "The world is spectacular," which is not a boast. Mao Jue was taken up the mountain by Xianxia and was here to guard the gate. The sword light flickered, and a graceful figure stood there floatingly. The sound of the long sword returning to its scabbard sounded like a young phoenix. It was Nan Chang, the female sword immortal who had just left seclusion and the leader of the Huayang Palace sword immortal line. Yin Xian looked happy and Jisho congratulated her. After all, she now had a great swordsman in her family. Nan Chang returned the gift with a smile. He was also the chief inspector of the Taoist sect. Yin Xian followed the rules and the female crown was freehand. Nan Chang called Mao Jue fellow white-bone Taoist first. After a moment of hesitation she called, "Palace Master," again. Harry Cohn didn't care about this. In the history of Defei Mountain, there have been many extraordinary people and noble figures. There are many statues of heavenly lords in the Patriarch Hall, but only 2 of them can be called sword immortals. Therefore, the South Wall was able to successfully come out of seclusion in this special year and add to the Taoism. Combat strength, or whether this matter is heard better, are secondary. The most important thing is that the South Wall is helping Huayang Palace, and this new world is a good omen showing the recent fortune of Huayang Palace, and was not greatly implicated by the death of his master. The idea of hair cone has probably been around in the lower-level market for a long time, and it always has a somewhat earthy smell. Just talking about the sword-wielding style of the female crown on the south wall, the Taoist officials in the mountain have naturally long been accustomed to it. The ordinary scenes here are mysterious from the many legends of strange monsters outside the mountains. Following the gazes of Palace Master Mao and Yin Tianjun, Nan Chang casually glanced at the scene on the other side of the mountain road. Without paying attention he asked curiously, "Is there any definite news about when Nye Jianxian will visit Huayang Palace?" Mao Zhu shook his head. Nye Bixia is now traveling through the wilderness with Zhang Fenghai, and has established a family. However, Yin Xian took pains to warn, it is a big pass to rise from Yupu to immortal. This time Shoshan Pavilion helped to protect the pass, the kindness and fate are not small. Master Nongguan must not do it casually. On my side, there are several jars of immortal wine that have been treasured for many years and are available on the market. They were obtained from a site left over from an ancient immortal corpse after he traveled down the mountain in his early years. After drinking one jar there will be no more. You only need to use it to entertain distinguished guests. I won't waste Yin Tianjin's wine. My Taoist friend from outside the mountain has a weird habit. I have seen people who are addicted to alcohol, but I have never seen people who smell their inner demons when they smell alcohol. Nan Chang waved his hands quickly and explained with a smile. The reason why I ask this is because he has admired Nye Jianxian for a long time. He is just waiting here and guarding the gate for me just by the way. Mao Zhu smiled. That young immortal with a promising future is the real drunkard who doesn't care about drinking. The problem is that Nanxiang doesn't understand the style and has let down the infatuated people. Nye Bixia, who was born in Yenzhou, was an elusive loose immortal with superb swordsmanship, but her everlasting lantern had always been placed in the main hall of Huayang Palace. There has been no information for 3,000 years, and it was only thanks to this lamp that the outside world was able to confirm that Nye Bixia had not been reincarnated. When Nye Bixia was ranked among the 10 candidates in this selection, the mountain became even more curious. Could it be that Nye Bixia had been hiding in a Taoist temple in Defei Mountain, secretly seeking opportunities to join the Tao? There are also some unsubstantiated rumors saying that Nye Bixia and Xianxia had a good impression of each other on the road of spiritual practice, but unfortunately they were not destined to share the same fate. But even if she didn't become a Taoist monk, she could still be entrusted with her life, so Lu Bixia placed her natal lantern in Xiaoga's Huayang Palace. There was a young man on the mountain road who wiped his mouth, salivated, and said in a strong local tone, "Sister, I heard that the fish in the pond and the bamboo shoots on the road in this mountain are unique, and they are not comparable to ordinary mountain delicacies. I'm drooling just thinking about it." I don't know if I can trade my foot strength for happiness during this tiring climb. The woman with a beautiful money hanging from her waist laughed softly and said, "Foodie." A noble boy from the Yang family was looking around. Taoist priests from this mountain go into the mountains to dig winter bamboo shoots and select yellow mud tips. After the beginning of spring, the bamboo shoots that come down from the mountain must go this way. They burst out of the ground as if taking revenge. They are all wearing armor and coming here to show off their power. The Taoist priest succeeded again. Peeling off the shells is like removing armor. The bamboo shoots are as white as snow, extremely fresh and tender, and the bacon is stewed in a pot. It is so delicious that the diners can only feel ashamed and chopsticks are flying. Nan Chang's gaze rested on the woman wearing a power fence on the mountain road, eager to try. They say that the Hongnong Yang family has a unique way of concealing their own destiny and luck. I've just broken through so I can try it? Yin Xian repeatedly tried to dissuade him. Master Nanguan, this is inconsistent with etiquette. You must not act like this. This group of wealthy young people from the Hongnong Yang family traveled together, so how could they not be protected secretly by an expert? Nan Chang smiled as if he still hadn't given up the idea. In addition to her current state of mind, she also possesses an ancient secret technique that is extremely talented. She can do it without anyone noticing, and she won't do anything if the blindness is broken. Everyone knows that the Yang family of Hongnong has produced a stunning woman who can be said to be the most beautiful woman in the eyes of the monks in the mountains. It is said that in recent years the number of marriage seekers has exceeded the threshold. There are even more mysterious rumors. There was once a passerby expert who was proficient in facial features. He had already calculated her future fate of being a mother who would honor the world, then listen to politics from behind the curtain, and finally become an emperor on her own. If that's the case, whoever marries her back home will have a lot of fun. Her life is naturally the most prosperous one in the world, but the man who Ming Media is marrying her to? And the man's family? There are various opinions, and they almost say that she is the most beautiful woman in the world in 10,000 years. It seems that all the men in the world are waiting for her to grow up. Maybe it's because there are too few friends with whom we can be sincere. Let this Taoist priest always walk alone regardless of whether he is in the mountains or outside. The pines and cypresses are ancient, with lush branches and leaves, and their skin is like dragon scales. Pedestrians stand in the shade of trees to escape the summer heat, and their faces turn green when illuminated. The water in the pond next to it is extremely clear, with fish, algae and waterfowl swimming around, just like flying in the air. For example, the fish viewing pavilion, which serves to connect the landscape with the mountains and rivers, is a solitary figure, with dozens of giant fish kept in the pond. According to the story, whenever friends come, the owner will catch them to entertain them. Born in Ruzhou, a small and remote country, and his hometown is that obscure county, Jianghu has an ordinary background as a fisherman for generations by the water. Therefore, every time Jianghu went out to relax in the mountains, he would often choose the wind and snow season, use a small boat as a coir raincoat man and cook wine and stew fish alone. He was probably a Taoist priest who lived in the secluded mountains and was good at refining qi and nourishing the spirit. Even though Difei Mountain was shocked by the death of Master Gao Enzu and all the disciples of Huayang Palace were in mourning, almost everyone like Yin Tianjun didn't know how to deal with it. It shows on his face. She wasn't heartbroken, just a little sad. I always feel that a true Taoist priest like Patriarch Gao should live another 10,000 years. When that person was gone, I realized that I had never known this person. All of them were really in awe of Grandmaster Gao. I always feel that this among gods is always pure in heart, unsmiling all year round, and has an unparalleled spirit of ice and snow. As long as Patriarch Gao is participating in the meeting of the Patriarch Hall, it seems that the entire Patriarch Hall will be a little colder. What Yin Xian was thinking about was a very small past incident. A few young Taoist boys sneaked out of the Taoist temple at night. They had long been interested in the vegetable garden of an uncle, and gathered together to eat cucumbers and simmer potatoes. During this period they met an unfamiliar young Taoist official. Big eyes stared at small eyes, both parties looked embarrassed. There was a clever guy among the children who thought that if they wanted to avoid being caught as thieves, they should become thieves together. So he invited the Taoist priest who looked at his age and senior brother's appearance to have a midnight snack together. Fill your stomach. In the night, the firelight shines and the children's bright eyes seem to say, "Senior brother, please don't complain to the master, the temple owner and the others. The boards are not delicious." That Taoist temple is the lower courtyard of Tsuiwei Palace. located in a secluded place on the mountain behind the secondary peak. The incense is not much better or worse. At that time, Yin Xian and his two direct disciples in the lower courtyard Taoist temple watched the scene from a distance. Neither of them dared to disturb their respective masters and ancestors. 55. The Taoist priest and the fire are like two fires. Mao Zhui thought of an old almanac page. One of Gao Gu's senior brothers and a junior brother were both sword cultivators, and were respectively the first founders of Kuwaiging and Demuguan's founding sections 3,000 years ago. There was a dragon-slaying battle in the Haoran world caused by Lu Chen's intention to solve the problem of Tianyan. There was also a catastrophe of its own in the Qingming world, involving the Dao Huaizhou of the pseudo-15th incarnation outer demon. Yudo led the battle. The sword conquers the devil. In that battle, all the high-ranking Taoist officials from Baiyujing were dispatched. The Taoist priests lined the sky like blue cranes and besieged a state. Although the demon was finally suppressed, it still caused a continent to sink. Two of Gao Gu's fellow disciples died in that battle. Together with Gao Gu, they were the most promising figures in the Huayang Palace. Baiyujing had not announced anything and was willing to go there on his own initiative to help the people defend the way. Later generations simply cannot imagine that the Taoist priest Gao Gu, the person he admired most in his life, was once Yudo. In the Battle of Lu Qin, Gao Gu resolutely risked his life to go there just because it was Baiyu Jinjiu who was the master and the abbot in charge of the overall situation. On the road to Difei Mountain, outside a Taoist temple where people were doing their homework, a group of people stopped to rest by the pergola on the mountain road, drink tea and listen to Taoist sentiments. In a remote small county in Yingchuan County, there is a small Taoist temple that has just gained popularity. An old man named Chang Bo and a lively young man named Qin Song were sweeping the floor at dusk. An ancient state collapsed and turned into a land of great lakes. The alien demon, which had fled and hid again and again and whose traces were found by Lu Qin again and again, had to appear here. It shook its sleeves vigorously, trying to throw away those golden Taoist charms that were broken and connected. He dispersed and gritted his teeth and said, "Baiyujing is really a sinner. Pity our state, Lu Qin, for being a water country. Lu Qin, you have gone too far to bully others, so don't blame me for overthrowing the world." The Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown on his head, a Dharma image that truly stood tall and proud, smiled and said, "If the Taoist doesn't agree, you can't do it." 3 villages with different surnames are surrounded by mountains and winding yellow mud roads, following the stream. Year after year, chickens crow and dogs bark on the ground, and smoke curls into the sky. Lu Xian said he wanted to go to the village school to visit. Ningji said he had the key to the school. Zhao Shuxia then talked about where to eat and asked Ningji to lead the 2 gentlemen to the school. He happened to go there first. Chef Ningji will take them there later. Zhao Shuxia did not forget to apologize to the 2 gentlemen for not treating the guests well. Seeing that Jing Juzhong had no intention of refusing, Lu Shi smiled and agreed, saying that it was no trouble. Looking at the tall and thin figure of the young martial artist, Lu Xian said, "He can adapt." Jing Juzhong said, "If you see things with your eyes, the world will be brighter." Lu Qian felt this and said, "Lu Qin is right. The biggest problem of Confucianism is its unwillingness to talk about people's hearts carefully." Jing remained silent. Lu Zai's biggest problem is that he likes to focus on the shortcomings of Confucianism. The entire Qingming world was naturally overwhelmed by Dao ancestor, so he had no choice but to go to Leap Moon Peak and become a pure martial artist. Not to mention the wild dial engraving. Lu Fangxiao asked, "Indeed, a person who has eaten well cannot look back and dislike the lack of delicacies on the table. Do you want to say that I don't know how blessed I am despite being blessed?" Zheng Juzhong said, "Since it is your problem, of course it is Confucianism's problem. Yasheng's sentence, if you do something wrong, look to yourself, is it not talking about people's hearts in a straightforward and clear way? It's just that we scholars are illiterate." Lu Chen's so-called rivalry between Lu Shi and the Holy Master is actually just superficial. Lu Zai's Taoism and Confucianism have long been merged, making it impossible to distinguish them. Looking at the pros and cons of the situation of the 5 of them, regardless of Feng Yuanxiu's young age, it is true that Haoran and Lu Shi are the most comfortable, walking around the world without restraint. No matter how open-minded Lu Feng was, he didn't like scolding. He immediately changed the subject, picked up a thread and said, "Over there at Tiandu Peak." Zheng Juzhong nodded and said, "As soon as the Lizhu cave took root, it was like the dust had settled." Lu Shen finally gave up and admitted that he had no other choice. He had to lower his profile and go to the town in person to find another good opportunity. Lu Xun knew it well, and then if he misses it by 200 or 300 years, he will have no hope of joining the path. By that time, even if Zhou Zi is willing to give way, Lu Xun still won't be able to go far. Lu Qi couldn't help but laugh and commented, "The dog's tail follows the mink." Zheng Juzhong shook his head and said, "When it was still Lizhu Cave Heaven, the geographical advantage was not on Lu Xun's side. When the Cave Heaven descended into a blessed land, there was an opportunity. Those who practice Taoism must always look for a chance of survival. Those who are proficient in numerology must not be let down by themselves. Count it to death." Lu Fang smiled and said, "The Lu family of the Yin and Yang family in Middle-earth has carefully planned a plan, using Master Qin and Luopa Mountain as coordinates. It seems that he is searching for a sword, but in fact he is going in the right direction. But Lu Xun seems to be missing a little bit of luck. This subtle point the gap makes a huge difference." Zheng Juzhong said, "If you don't recognize people well and use them improperly, he will suffer the consequences and fail. If you don't have enough Taoist power, you can't blame Zhou Zi for blocking the way." Lu Fang said, "Lu Wei was already the best candidate that the Lu family had at that time. If he is attached to Ji Wei, the chances are not small. After all, Lu Xun is the head of the Lu family, so it is impossible for him to get involved personally. At the time, it seemed that there is nothing wrong with God's choice. The head of the family, Lu Xun, was controlled by Zhou Zi and was always blocked outside the threshold of the 14th realm. He had been stagnant for a long time and was unable to penetrate the world due to his unique skills." Zheng Juzhong shook his head and said, "In the final analysis, Lu Xun was still complacent back then. He thought he had glimpsed the secret of heaven and knew how powerful Zhou Zi was. Deep down in his heart he still underestimated Zhou Zi's Tao power. Where are the cultivators who are determined to prove the Tao? There is no room for chance." Lu Xi asked, "Mr. Zheng seems to have a low opinion of Lu Xun in general?" Zheng Juzhong said, "It's not low anymore." Lu Xian suddenly laughed to himself just because he remembered a Wenlin case with a similar meaning, which was between Xiaohu and the old Master Li. When Cui Chan was young, he had personally annotated the world-famous Shanhai Tu Shu, which was very important. There are many details in the content. Someone argued with him to defend Master Li, but Cui Chan said that if a book wants to disturb my eyes, it must first be able to get into my eyes. The implication couldn't be simpler. It's probably that I'm willing to scold you a few words, which is a compliment in itself, so don't be ungrateful. Such words reached Master Li's ears, but the old man didn't say anything at that time. During the last meeting at the Confucian temple, Qin Pingan discussed this matter with this old gentleman. In fact, Master Li, who was both civil and military, still misunderstood him as the senior fellow of the young Yingguan, and highly praised the book. Lu Shi suddenly asked, "Why don't those sword cultivators hate Qin Qingdu?" Zheng Juzhong said, "I dare not." Miyu had previously been invited by Wei Bo to practice Taoism for the women in Changchun Palace. He once met an old Qi practitioner who asked for help in a dream and needed external help to save his body from disaster. Another example is Wang Jia, a monk from the Fuyao Island Dao named Shujuan. The reason why he pretended to be in the Ascension realm was that he carefully set up a situation and deliberately used his words, deeds, and anger to provoke Song Pin's group of sword immortals, which then involved Qin Pingan and the Great Sword Qi Great Wall. Attracting Ning Yao, he tried to use his sword to solve the problem. On the Sword Qi Great Wall, it is rare to see such things. How many young sword cultivators have only suffered a calamity until death? Even Miyu, a swordsman with a high level at that time, didn't know that there were disasters in destiny, methods to cope with disasters, and ways to escape from disasters. But these are the common sense of Monk Howren. I guess even if I knew it, I would be too lazy to care about it and wouldn't take it seriously. To take a step back, if you really know it, will it be useful if you really care about it? Miyu and others were completely unaware, but Sun Jiyuan and others knew it well. Lu Fang hesitated for a moment and said, "Huang Zhen is not easy to mess with. After all, he is a 14th level sword cultivator with the word, pure, not to mention he has adventures." Having said this, even Lu Xiang, who is used to seeing all kinds of strange things, couldn't help but repeat, "An adventure." Of course, Lu Shi has selfish motives. After all, Huang Zhen is a figure who came out of Lizhu Cave and devoted himself to practicing Taoism. If we look at the present node, the future will last for thousands of years. Huang Zhen has always focused on refining swords and has no understanding of the world. He has no influence, has not established a sect, and has not even accepted disciples. Of course, Lu Xian will not dislike such a Taoist. In this matter, Huang Zhen and Qin Pingan, who have become mortal enemies, as well as Jing Juzhong in Lu Zai's eyes, since they are all Howren people, the palms and backs of their hands are all flesh, and it is best to be in separate shapes. If we live together in Quan, since the relationship is not good, we will never interact with each other, so why fight to the death? It's just that Huang Zhen was too obsessed with it. After attaining enlightenment, he had been pestering Qin Pingan for a long time. Just like a man who came from a humble background and worked hard to earn a wealthy family, he must make up for his miserable childhood in order to feel at ease. Jing Juzhong said, "I will be careful." That's why he went on a night cruise first to borrow the 2 natal flying swords from Beijing. Lu Shi was speechless, so Huang Zhen had to be even more careful. It is not difficult to win the 14th realm, but it is extremely difficult to kill the 14th realm. So you can imagine how difficult it is to completely eliminate a pure swordsman in the 14th realm. Neither party expressed their true feelings in their words, but Ning Ji heard it clearly. Ning Ji felt that Mr. Lu was an ancient man. Mr. Zheng is more like a wife. Jing Juzhong said, "Ning Ji, don't just study. Books can enlighten the mind and also fool people. A scholar must be able to use books. Since studying is destined to be hard, books must be used by me." Ningji nodded knowingly. The little senior brother said something similar, "You need to read the book to the point of breaking through it." There are actually 2 interpretations of the word break, when you read through tens of thousands of books. One is the literal meaning, and the other means that you need to read every book thoroughly. Know which words are the true words of the author, which words are insincere words that go against his heart, which words are sharp-edged and murderous that do not agree with the world, which words are conciliatory and conciliatory with the world, which words are written with a smile, and which words are written with a smile. They are written with frowns, which ones are the wandering emotions trying to find a confidant outside the book, and which ones are the master's secret words that hide his thoughts. Walking to the village school together, Lu Shi saw an old osmanthus tree in the mountains along the way. Lu Shi asked, "Ning Ji, after reading the book, what do you want to do most?" Ning Ji was a little shy and said softly, "Senior sister and junior senior brother have both hinted and made it clear to me that I must first obtain merit and fame. I will take the academy and township examinations. I will be able to pass the test with overwhelming force." Pei Qian hoped that Ning Ji, his younger brother, could win the top prize and save Chao Qinglang from having to raise his tail. The big white goose thinks that Ning Ji is a good scholar who can study and practice Buddhism at the same time. When the time comes, he will win 3 yuan in a row, which will make his husband happy. Lu Shi smiled and said, "There is no need to be embarrassed. Mr. Zheng, do you think so?" Zheng Juzhong looked at the osmanthus trees in the mountains and nodded. The road of life, no matter when or where, is not about rushing to the examination room day and night. Study, make a living, get married, have children, become talented, seek saints and sages, seek immortality, become a Buddha, and attain enlightenment. When the flowers are beautiful and the moon is full, people will live longer. I hope that all the kings will win the laurels. Sword of Coming Chapter 1151. The young Taoist priest is sitting on a small bamboo chair, with a mountain of poverty behind him. This is called having a backer. Xianhui dipped his saliva in his mouth and turned over a page of the book. Unconsciously, the snow-white paper and the pitch-black words were filled with a faint blush. When the Taoist priest raised his head, he saw that the sun was setting in the west, and there were still red burning clouds in the sky, still reluctant to leave and longing for the world. "There is a book in your sleeve, you are so rich and noble, I have nothing to do today, little fairy. The long river of time is a dojo, and the days and I are like swimming fish swimming leisurely together." After the mountain patrol, the father-in-law's son who had been busy for a day had already been delivered to the door of his house. Xiaomi Li came to the foot of the mountain, tugged on the rope of the crossbody package and asked tentatively, "Master Xianhui?" The Taoist Xianhui understood it, nodded and said with a smile, "I'll finish the work immediately. I'll take some when I have some free time." This is a riddle that belongs exclusively to him and Xiaomi Li. Nagging is also knocking, and eating melon seeds is also knocking. After all, Luolu Mountain is not an ordinary mountain. We welcome and send visitors infrequently, and even if we occasionally receive guests, they are not ordinary people. When I'm free, I'm really free. Even if I'm busy, I can't keep him busy. The owner of the mountain generously allocated the fragrant volcano directly to Xianhui and his new disciples as a dojo to open the mountain. In recent days, Taoist priests Xianhui and Lin Feijing have been carrying hoes and dustpans on the other side of the mountain. With the hatchet in hand, we were busy working together to build bridges and roads, gradually building pavilions and building huts. Simple and simple, there is no need to be so particular about it, but after all, it is the addition of bricks and tiles to one's own family. No matter how you look at it, you will feel happy. Xianwei did not ask for a tale of silver from Mr. Wei Wenlong, the accountant of Jisa Fengquan Mansion. With his salary as a janitor, it was more than enough. Besides, how could Chief Zhou not show any signs every time he climbed a mountain? As a man, when your money bag bulges, your waist will become stronger. The poor man is no longer poor now, he knows that he is a rich man. Xuanhuan sent a message, saying that it was the wish of the mountain owner that Taoist Master Xianwei could go to Xiangshan Mountain more in the near future. He was busy with important matters and there was no one to watch over the mountain gate, so it would be okay. Xianwei was the best at being rude to polite people, and he immediately humbly accepted the mountain master's suggestion. In the Xiangshan Mountain, he and the cheap disciple took a break between work, eating pickles and chewing dry food, with the gurgling sound of the stream in their ears. I drank a pot of glutinous rice wine with my apprentice among the mountain flowers and looked around. I always felt that every day was a good time to have a new look. There is no one on Luolu Mountain who dislikes Xiamili, but if we really want to say who chats with Xiamili the most, to be honest, if we count the number of words in the chat, it is really the gatekeeper, Taoist priest Xianwei, who has the most. It is estimated that Nuan Shu and Chen Lingjun are not comparable. Xianwei really likes to chat with Xiamili. He is very interested every time and is never bored at all. So much so that even Chen Lingjun and Bai Xian were in admiration. It would be a pity that Xianwei didn't open a school to learn from him. Xiaomi Li would also save those wonderful ideas that came to her during the mountain patrol, and then go to the mountain gate to share them with Taoist Master Xianwei. Occasionally, a few will run away, but they will often be picked up next time they patrol the mountains. One of them has nothing to worry about, and the other has nothing to worry about. They talk about everything with their brows stretched out and lazily. The Xianwei put his hands in his sleeves like a farmer, with his palms stacked in his sleeves. Our sorrows are often brought about by yesterday, and worries are often worried about what will happen tomorrow. Even if there is a recipe for immortality in the world, how can we solve the problem that yesterday has passed? Things that have not yet come tomorrow. Buddhism says that things cannot be eliminated except the mind. As a common man, it is easy to do but difficult to do. How can we truly let things change according to our heart? Xiaomi Li shook his head and said seriously, Master Xianwei, you are an immortal who practices superb Taoism in the mountains. The young Taoist priest leaned comfortably on the back of the bamboo chair and said with a smile, maybe Xiaomi has a clever trick, please give me some advice. Xiaomi Li laughed and said, then just ask the right person. If you ask me how to practice immortal magic, I'm sorry, the big water monster in Dumb Lake can only wander the rivers and lakes, but if you want to ask me how to fight with unhappy, oh, I do have some insights. The little girl in black put her chin on her hands and blinked her eyes. She saw the high mountains, the curved water, the chubby white clouds, the big-bellied blue sky. There is no need to start with the real words in your heart. Yesterday's worries and unhappiness are all the grains of rice are small and big. Put them in the big happy bowl today, eat them, fill the gaps between your teeth and put the bowl on the big table tomorrow. The young Taoist priest gently touched his palms and exclaimed in admiration, that's right, that's right. Don't dedicate your limited body to dedicating millions of sorrows to the world. Xiaomi Li handed over another handful of melon seeds, and Xianwei took it and said with a smile, I also have a bowl, but I didn't bring it with me. I left it at my ancestral home. With a glass of wine in hand, big things are like mustard seeds, while eating melon seeds, small things are like the sky. Xiaomi Li rubbed her cheeks and hesitated to speak. Xianwei smiled heartily and said, Pindao didn't pop out of a stone. Of course he has his hometown and his ancestral home. Xiaomi Li chewed the melon seeds and whispered, Master Xianwei, Sister Pei said that you were not yet prosperous back then. When you were in Longyu Shoal, you were captured by the bandit den as the accountant. Sister Pei also said that you were the big guy. The plump female head of the house is strong and powerful. She covets your beauty and wants to steal you as her husband. Sister Pei also said that it was a shame that you refused to obey and used many tricks to pretend that she was in Beijing to take the exam. You son, after you are named on the gold list, you will definitely come back and it will be known that the matchmaker is marrying her. He brought her home in an 8-carriage sedan chair, so that the female master let you go. When you left, you splashed ink and left a calligraphy treasure for the village. God rewards those who work hard. The bandits cheered loudly, and the master sent you down the mountain, and the pear blossoms brought rain. Is it true? The story is full of twists and turns. Xianwei Nanyan felt dizzy when he heard this. It's an embarrassing thing, an embarrassing thing. Some of it was Xiao Haitan's exaggeration back then and some of it was real. For example, the head of the family was actually very handsome and as beautiful as a flower. As for the oath of eternal love, of course there is no such thing. There is a small town saying that describes something meaningless, and one would say, there is no bright spot. Plaques will be hung in the main halls of wealthy homes. If a bandit's den where people cut paths down the mountain hangs the slogan, "Heaven rewards those who work hard," it will be used to encourage oneself every day. Master Xianwei, don't you consider the feelings of the people nearby and the merchants passing by? Xianwei recalled some past events and said softly, it is said to be a bandit's nest, but in fact it is a people who are driven to the mountains by the world to survive. There are people who block roads to make money, but there are none who kill people. After getting the money, the bandits still pay IOUs. After traveling all over the country for so many years, the only people who robbed the most villages were the old men who resigned and returned to their hometowns with lavish eunuchs. They often hired hundreds of people. Can you imagine those officials? When you leave office and hand over your seal, not to mention the tables and chairs in the government office, even the windows will be removed and moved home. I remember that Jizi has always wanted to save money, and when the debt is paid off he will build a famous martial arts sect and make a living as an escort. Every time we talk about this while drinking, the eyes of men, women and children all light up. Xiaomi Li held her cheeks with her hands, listening intently, listening to Taoist Xianwei's eloquent talk about the past. After taking another look at the sky and scenery, Xianwei raised his sleeves, shook them slightly, closed his eyes and reached out to count. Setting up a stall to tell fortunes, being able to pinch and calculate, and cutting gold with an iron mouth are the skills of traveling Taoist priests all over the world. Xiaomi Li asked in confusion, Master Xianwei, what are you doing? Xianwei slowly opened his eyes and said seriously, do the math and see if there is green pepper fried ham on the table today. Xiaomi Li rolled his eyes. Xianwei patted his belly and said with a laugh, food is the most important thing for the people, so you can't fool yourself. Xiaomi Li suddenly said, check again to see if there are any braised bamboo shoots. The Xianwei asked, if the right protector opens his mouth to order, the old cook won't show off his 120% skill? Xiaomi Li explained, Zhongqi has no discernment. He eats 3 meals a day plus a midnight snack and orders dishes every time. It off the old chef, so I won't add fuel to the fire. Besides, in private, the old chef would send her and sister Xuanhu all kinds of pastries every now and then, so many that he could hardly even remember their names. Xianwei nodded vigorously, but he was actually very grateful to Zhong Qian, the toothpick-wielding man. Without him to face the difficulties, Xianwei and Zheng Dafeng would not be able to get back to work. On the mountain road, a young man with an astonishing face walked slowly. Xianwei was already accustomed to this, but he couldn't lose his etiquette and stood up together with Xiaomi Li. When he arrived at the gate of the mountain, the young man pointed to the top of the mountain very close to Lualu Mountain, signed up for his number and said with a smile, distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. I come from Chengdu Peak. My surname is Lu Mingshan and my Taoist name is Tianbian. The Xianwei said, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a poor and mysterious person. I'm a down-and-out mountain gatekeeper. I've met fellow Taoist Lu. Tianbian, right? The boy's Taoist slogan is not bad either, Xuanhu, let's see who has the more powerful Taoist slogan. But Xiaomi Li was curious as to why the music composer, who was always diligent, didn't show up. Lu Shen calmly turned slightly sideways, his face as usual. Xuanhu Immortal and Lualu Mountain really complement each other. If the mountain is not high, the immortal will be spiritual, and if the mountain is not high, the Tao will be revealed. Xianwei couldn't speak for a while. Such kind words were a bit too much. According to Zheng Dafeng, it's the heat, so pay attention to the heat. Lu Shen said straight to the point, I visited Luapa Mountain today to tell you something. I hope the Taoist master can tell it to Master Chen as soon as possible. Ma Kuxuan in Xinghua Lane has a direct descendant. He is both the founding disciple and the closed disciple. This person is the town's master. The local people. As for the other apprentices recruited outside, it is Ma Kuxuan's trick. As for this person's name, I really can't say much. Xianwei was confused when he heard it, but he still nodded and agreed. Wei Bo followed Lu Shen to the mountain gate. Lu Shen said, I have met Wei Shenjun. Wei Bo looked unhappy, I don't dare to take it seriously. Lu Shen said from his heart, a few years ago Chui Guosher came to Chengdu Peak and had some honest remarks with me. Wei Bo frowned slightly. With Lu Shen's cultivation and methods, he deliberately concealed it, and the Dali court couldn't find any clues even if they wanted to. Of course, the premise is that Lu Xun's cross-continental journey and settling in Dali have the permission or acquiescence of xuanhuan, the national preceptor. Tiandu Peak is located between Luolu Mountain and the town. It is closer to Luolu Mountain than Tiaoyu Mountain and Fiolo. Therefore it is not an ordinary close neighbor but like a next-door neighbor. On the surface, the immortal capital peak, which has great meaning, and the landlord recorded by the Dali court, are in Xianxia sect with similar background as the Huangliang sect. Over the years, Tiandu Peak, which has always been surrounded by immortals, has only a dozen or so mountain monks. There are no earthly immortals sitting on the top of the mountain. They live in seclusion, which is more like a closed mountain than Luolu Mountain. Occasionally, a monk would come down the mountain, and a young monk who had not yet reached the 5th level of the middle school would go to the city to buy some firewood, rice, oil and salt on a regular basis. Tiandu Peak and Luolu Mountain have never had any contact, and they are not even familiar faces. The top of the main mountain of Tiandu Peak is slightly lower than the main mountain of Luolu Mountain, Jiling Peak, so it does not hinder the line of sight. Qin Lingjun and the others can have an unobstructed view of the town from the top of their home. The identities of the 3 neighboring mountain masters are naturally kept in the archives of the Great Li dynasty. Wei Bo, as his immediate boss, the god of the 5 mountains, can of course consult them at will. But for so many years, Qin Pingan had no intention of exploring it, and Wei Bo never mentioned it without asking. Later, Fuyao Foothills was secretly bought by Pei Qian with money. Tiaoyu Mountain was the private property of Changchun Palace Gani and was also taken over by Cui Dongshan. Xiego fell in love with Tiandu Peak and wanted to spend money to buy it as a dowry. It's a pity that when she mentioned this to Wei Bo only said that he couldn't buy it with money, and he had to wait until the master of your mountain became the Grand Master of Dali. Xiego is not the mountain master. She has already confirmed that there is indeed no earth immortal in Tiandu Peak, and even the Supreme 5 realms are practicing there. Otherwise, if she breathes and refines qi even slightly, she will know about it. If there is a time-honored ascension realm hidden in the mountains that is very good at concealing the secrets of the heavens, if it does exist, it is fine to hide it very deep, but it is best for fellow Taoists not to move. When Lu Xun chose to show up on his own initiative, this was what made Wei Bo feel depressed and annoyed. According to Wei Bo's unique information channel, Tiandu Peak did have a real landlord hiding behind the scenes, but Wei Bo never expected that this person and his family were still the pawns pushed to the forefront by Lu Xun. Therefore, Wei Bo felt that it was his silence that misled the always cautious Qin Pingan. Damn it, this Tiandu Peak is the top of the mountain right under my nose. Wei Bo was scared to think about such a big mistake. Lu Xun, the head of the Lu family in Middle-earth, is so high in the sky that others respect you and fear you, but I, Wei Bo, will not tolerate you. Wei Bo was extremely unhappy and Lu Xun was quite depressed. The appearance of the girl in the mink hat is a big trouble. She doesn't know whether it's because she is idle or because she has special powers, but she has a spiritual consciousness every now and then, regardless of day or night, without any rules at all. She often secretly patrols Tiandu Peak, doing things in an unruly manner. She is really unscrupulous. This even God Lu did not dare to take it lightly, so he could only set up 3 small heavens and add dozens of secret spell restrictions to cover up his own energy. Spending a little spiritual energy and a sum of fairy money is nothing, but it is a huge waste of time and makes Lu Xun helpless. Later, in the Lu family in Middle-earth, Qin Pingan and the girl in the mink hat returned to the world from the outer world. Evil guests came to the door, couldn't be more familiar. Not only is his swordsmanship amazing, he is also good at many Taoist arts. Even Lu Xun, who considers himself to be a good monk, almost doubts whether Bai Jing is similar to Ruanxiu and Li Lu. Lu Xun looked up at the mountain gate archway and said to himself, "The enemies of my enemies may not be friends, but at least there is a certain chance of becoming allies. Zhou Zi is my sworn enemy on the Great Road. He goes up to the world and down to the earth and he can never get ahead. It's extremely painful. Since the goals are the same, he has his dragon-slaying skills, and I have my own dragon drawing and dragon supporting skills. Then let's show off our magical powers and compete." The matter of cultivating the Tao is to sail against the current. A Taoist heart must never retreat even a little bit, and a Taoist spirit must never fail in the slightest. Xiaomi Li had already sensed that something was wrong in the atmosphere. It was rare to see Wei Shanjun looking so annoyed, so she sat on the small bamboo chair, looking at her nose and heart, and her mind went to the old cook's kitchen. 55? The Xianwei was also sitting upright, but he looked at the young man with a great name from the corner of his eye. Judging from his attire, he didn't look like a rich man, but since he could have Wei Shenjun come to entertain guests in person, his identity must be very intimidating. Wei Bo didn't bother to talk around with Lu Shen and sneered, "May I ask the head of the Lu family, when did you come to Qindu Peak to personally plan the great cause?" The state-owned legal family has family rules and rural covenants, and the high-ranking landscape gods are within their own jurisdiction. It is their duty to help the Orthodox court keep an eye on the developments of the monks and the immortal mansion. Lu Shen said calmly, "It is customary at the foot of the mountain that the winter solstice is like the new year. I arrived at Huaihuang County on this day. After some rough research, I chose Qindu Peak as a temporary dojo. On the second day of the first lunar month of the new year, I was in the mountains, saw Shanzhu Chen's face for the first time." Note 1, Chapter 188 Rules and Trivialities. At that time all the mountains in the west were undergoing large-scale construction, opening caves, building mansions and adding immortality to the Taoist temples. Luapa Mountain had a mountain temple that was officially sanctioned by the imperial court because of Jiling Peak. Once it's settled, don't dare to spend a single copper coin less. The young mountain master had found something ready-made, and he didn't need to spend money on opening roads and other things out of his own pocket. As for making a swollen face and pretending to be fat, it had to be shown to others. At that time, Qin Pingon was only accompanied by Qin Lingjun and Nuan Shu. There was a big mountain, just the three of them, and at most one mountain without assistants or mates. On this day, according to local customs, he was supposed to start visiting relatives to pay New Year greetings. Naturally, Qin Pingon had no relatives to go with, so he simply took the boy in green and the girl in pink to the mountains. Lu Shen couldn't help but have a complicated look on his face and said slowly, "The boy with straw sandals on the road is close to the water. He looks up at the clouds and the jackal. He carries water and fire and a hatchet at his waist. He goes up the mountain and climbs to the top to see the sky." On Difei Mountain, Mao Jue seems to be teaching the swordsman Nanchang. Lord Heavenly Lord Yin Xian was extremely pleased. Taoism emphasizes the relaxation of nature and the natural way of Taoism. So you can work steadily and easily become an immortal. This is your ability. Whether ordinary people can cultivate Taoism depends on whether there is a way to come. After entering the mountains, they start to refine their qi and preserve their spirits. Whether they can finally achieve Taoism depends on whether they can find a way out. The mountains stand tall and the rivers flow just like people express their feelings. But no matter how high the mountains are, can they pierce the sky? No matter how majestic the rivers are, the destination is still the sea. You are a student of swordsmanship and have devoted your life to pursuing the origin of swordsmanship. Therefore, it is difficult to find people who share the same path while practicing in Difei Mountain. It is inevitable that you will feel that you are alone in your way. Over time, as your level increases, you will easily become arrogant. Of course, you also have your difficulties. As the abbot of Damu Temple and commanding more than 100 sword cultivators, you need to bear the honor and disgrace of the Huayang Palace sword immortal lineage. You can use this convenient method to unite people's hearts without any question. Nanchang smiled and said, "More than 100 people?" This was clearly her starting to find fault. Palace Master Mao had just entered Huayang Palace, so he must be busy with official duties and not familiar with the specific situation of Demugwan, a Taoist tributary, which is reasonable. Even though Mao Jue had recommended her as the leader of Difei Mountain, Nanchang should be somewhat grateful, but she always had an indescribable awkwardness when getting along with him. When a cultivator with a keen sense of spiritual awareness has such inspiration, he must not take it lightly. The sleeping area should be small so that it is easy to rest your mind. The study room should be large enough to gather energy. Therefore, the library is very tall and covers a large area, and Mao Jue's residence is very small. He just randomly picked a small courtyard near the gate. There is actually a white gauze mosquito net in the house that is common in people's homes down the mountain. Not to mention the enlightened people in the mountains, even those accomplished martial arts warriors can drive away mosquitoes and flies by themselves with an invisible force of energy, and frighten the wild beasts in the mountains. It's a good thing that no one visited the humble house, otherwise everyone in the south would be suspicious. This Bone Master, who has obviously reached the ascended realm long ago, lives such a simple and ordinary life. Who is he showing off to? Mao Jue said calmly, "Damu Temple is a Taoist priest, and the ancestral hall has a total of 6 generations of genealogy, a total of 105 people. You have been in retreat recently, and I will only know better than you where all of them are currently practicing Taoism." Nanchang asked, "It seems that Gao Qiong is going to retreat. Has fellow Taoist White Bones seen her?" She was a little girl that Patriarch Gao brought back from his hometown a few years ago. Her qualifications were not very outstanding, but the palace master personally led the person up the mountain. Nan Chang and Demugwen were certainly very fond of her. Mao Zhui said, according to the secret manual passed down to Gao Qiong by Tsuiwei Palace, if she practices step by step to break through seclusion, something will definitely go wrong. She will not be able to pass the dragon gate and she will most likely fall into the realm. I have asked someone to do it. Secretly taught her 2 sword arts, one specifically about dividing water, and the other about refining mirage swords. When she reaches the point where her mind is in tune, the Taoist formula will be able to manifest the dragon gate and a river in Baidi City, and the Taoist priest will be immersed in it. Shaped like a water dragon walking across the river to climb the dragon gate, it can increase her chances of winning. Nan Chang was very surprised. He never thought that our palace master Mao really knew all the sword cultivators at Demugwen? Is it because Grandmaster Gao had secretly given instructions before, or was Mao Zhui trying to open up the situation through Damu Temple? The new official took office, and the sword immortal lineage that had not made much progress in the hands of Grandmaster Gao, if it starts to flourish on Mao Zui's side, isn't this a common tactic used by Xianxia officialdom? Mao Zhui said, Lu Qin has a study which is not located in Nanhua City, his dojo. It is built in Yushu City and is called Guanxin Sword Studio. Nanxiang didn't know what Mao Zhui was doing when he mentioned this. Isn't this something known to the whole world? Mao Zhui said slowly, it's prepared for me. Nanxiang was stunned. She openly admitted her mistake and said with shame, fellow Taoist white bones, I judged a gentleman with a villain's heart and looked down on you. Mao Zhui said, no matter who inherits the Taoist lineage of Huayang Palace, you will be hostile to him. You feel that no matter the merits and morals of any Taoist official, he is not worthy of sitting in the chair of the Patriarch Hall. Furthermore, you are a human being. He is a Taoist priest who is particularly energetic and he is also a sword cultivator, so when you stand next to Master Baigu, who is also a sword cultivator, it is natural that you feel a potential danger, which is a kind of prediction that goes beyond instinct. If I were in Huayang Palace, if you have murderous intentions, you will be the second to notice. Nanchang asked curiously, who is the first Yin Tianjun? Mao Zhui glanced at Nanchang, maybe he didn't quite understand why she asked such a question. Behind the south wall, I finally realized the truth. It was the real owner of this mountain, the Tai mountain god. Mao Zhui walked to the water's edge. Perhaps the fish swimming in the pond mistakenly thought he was his old master, and started to gather around him. The old blind man cut out his eyes, and forcibly cut off a piece of land in the wilderness to create 100,000 mountains. The 5 elements of native gold kept moving into the mountains, supplemented by the group of divine generals and warriors wearing golden armor, suppressing the powerful Tao Qi from all the air palaces in the body almost rises to the sky, preventing the body from rising to the sky. The master of Bixiao Cave in Luobaotan, and later Donghaiguan Taoist Temple, have been so unforgiving since ancient times. If anyone dares to harm Pindo's Taoism, Pindao will cut off your favorable circumstances. Pure freedom, the ability to do everything you want to do, say no to anything you don't want to do, and be completely able to bear the cost. How many ordinary people give up the glory and wealth of the world and go to the mountains to seek immortality? They only seek enlightenment and longevity, and extravagantly hope to live as long as heaven and earth. Only Lu Chen's pursuit has never been the so-called 15 realms, or even the perfection of the Great Road, but only to see my true self. I don't know whether he was touched by the scene or just sentimental. He lowered his head and stared at the fish in the water. In an instant, the fish mistakenly thought that there was bait in the water. They scrambled for food for a while, but in the end it was all in vain and they all dispersed. Except for the swordsmanship that breaks through the illusion of life and death, it seems that Lu Qin has given all his longing for the world to a pair of bones. Luoshan Mountain. Chen Lingjun was burping with wine all the way back from the Tiefu River Water God Mansion. The boy in green had sharp eyes and saw what seemed to be a visitor at the mountain gate. He immediately put away his magic, pressed down the cloud head, floated on the road and concentrated on it. Look again and again, it's okay, it doesn't look like the heroic figures in the collection of passers-by. Then go and meet for a while, have enough wine and food and feel in good spirits. This was not a mistake between him and the new water god Bai Deng and Rongxing Miaozhuang. They were all brothers. They had not seen each other for several days and missed them very much. They made an appointment for the 3 brothers to have a good meal today. Before picking up the glasses, they did not forget to remind Bai Deng to only have a small drink and not to delay official duties. Zheng Qiuo packed up his clothes and went to Shuifu to help his brothers. He worked as a dog-headed military advisor, taking care of his criminal title, money and food, and being a master. He made money in a good way and controlled his subordinates well. Remind Bai Deng of many tips for dealing with people, how to deal with bosses, control subordinates and make friends with colleagues clearly. Bai Deng's character and temper were indeed a bit rough due to his Dao roots. Thanks to Tseng's mistakes in planning and Chen Lingjun's checking and filling in the gaps, he saved a lot of effort. The position of the water god is now secure. Chen Lingjun swung his sleeves and walked towards the mountain gate. He found Wei Bo and the young man with an unfamiliar face looking at him with respect. It's strange, there's something wrong with Wei Bo ever since he became the night god. His nose is not a nose, his eyes are not eyes. Is the sun coming out in the west today? Finally he found that Xiao Meili and Xian Wei were winking at him and gesturing behind him. Chen Lingjun turned his head and was startled. It turned out that two people came up the road and they looked like scholars. Chen Lingjun looked happy, turned around, put his hands on his hips, stood in the middle of the road and laughed loudly. Nephew Jing, sure. We saw each other last time, long time no see. Jing Juzhong smiled and nodded. Lu Xiang on the side had no expression on his face. Tut. I have seen people who are cruel and life-threatening, but I have never seen someone who dares to mistreat Jing Juzhong as Jing Juzhong. Jing Juzhong just didn't have his name engraved on his forehead. The kid in Xingyi couldn't recognize it? Chen Lingjun was wondering why the temporarily unidentified scribe looked a bit stooped. Lu Shun on the other side of the mountain gate remained calm, but his eyelids trembled slightly. Chen Lingjun strode towards the apprentice of his brother Qin Zhuoyo, put his hand to his mouth and said in a low voice, My nephew, if you haven't had time to find an inn in the county, why not stay at my house in the mountains? You can choose the east and west wings. If you don't like it, the houses on both sides are small, so I'll just leave the main house for you to live in. If my family doesn't speak the same language, there will be no host or guest, so you won't be polite or pretentious. After thinking about it again, the boy in Xingyi quickly added, If you like to be quieter and more comfortable, there are a few nice houses in the mountains. I'll take you to have a look. Let me know if you like them. Poor scholars are all good-looking. Understand? Then the friends around the poor scholar must not be rich, Lao liar. Wei Bo had nothing to say and put his hand on his forehead. But he was too lazy to explain anything to Chen Lingjun. This has been the case for so many years. Jing Juzhong said, Xen Ling, no need. Chen Lingjun was obviously a little disappointed. He fisted his fist and smiled brightly again. I have to have a meal before leaving. I have a good cook at home and his skills are quite good. Lu Fang smiled and helped to relieve the situation. Unfortunately, fellow Taoist Jingqing, we just had a home-cooked meal at Zhao Shuxia and Ning Jie's place. Chen Lingjun was not discouraged. Then let's talk about it next time, save this meal for now. Good brother Qin Zhuoyo was a poor scholar with little money in his pocket and a thin face. Scholars have such virtues, so Chen Lingjun and the old cook borrowed some serious books, sorted them into categories and put them on the table. It is convenient for them to browse through it when they live there one day. Set up a table in the yard, and there are only empty wine glasses on the table. There is no point in empty wine jugs. There is enough wine. Calling by Mangan plus brother Jia, who has always been in love with him, called him up the mountain. Then the four of them would gather at a table, fist pump and drink, having a good time. Every morning, whoever gets up first, just shouts when walking out of the door, an arrow pierces the clouds and thousands of troops come to meet each other. Brothers, where is the morning wine? Chen Lingjun remembered something and said from the bottom of his heart, My nephew, to tell you the truth, I have always had a bright mind and am famous for not being confused about important matters. This is not because I was sitting on the steps chatting and spanking with your master earlier. I am not thinking of you and when you can chat with Master Sheng and Big White Goose. I thought this was quite strange. My brain twitched and I was confused. I guess you are the demon Zheng from Baidi City. Ba ba ba. Tong Yen Wuji, must be the righteous and heroic Mr. Zheng He, he almost scared himself to death. Lu Xian and Lu Shen looked at each other, and then they both looked at Wei Shinjun, the chivalrous and courageous Zheng Juzhong, who taught Luo Shan. Wei Bo had no choice but to rely on his understanding and self-taught. Zheng Juzhong smiled and said, If I were Zheng Juzhong, then wouldn't my master be Qin Qinglu? If he were Qin Qinglu, you and the man who killed the dragon could be brothers. From now on, what are you afraid of? Wei Bo was inevitably a little worried. No matter how outspoken Chen Lingjun is in his words and actions, he is still a conscientious person. Lu Fang was more curious about how the boy in Xingyi would respond. Lu Xun felt that murderous intent was everywhere as soon as Zheng Zhuzhong said these words. Unexpectedly, the boy in green just tilted his head and remained still. It was hard to tell whether his eyes were clear or confused. He just stayed there. After staying for a long time and shaking his head vigorously, Chen Lingjun stretched out a finger and shook it. No, that's not the calculation. I don't know the specific reason, so I don't know much about it. Zheng Zhuzhong said, what about leaving some for now? Chen Lingjun laughed endlessly. To be able to chat with him, he must be someone who has read but not read much. Lu Xun felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy, and his heartstrings became tense. Why did Zheng Zhuzhong come here? Even so, Lu Xun still acted politely with the people around Zheng Zhuzhong, holding his breath and concentrating, performing an ancient ritual. Lu Shi just turned a blind eye. Going to the mountain gate and walking, the boy in green clothes first exchanged a fist salute with the strange young man who was very polite. He seemed to have thought of an explanation, scratched his head, and said a sincere word to the nephew Zheng Shi. I just want to make a few true friends. It doesn't matter whether their status is high or low, whether their wealth is big or small, whether their money bags are bulging or flat. The tabletop where the wine and bowls are placed is always flat. Zheng Zhuzhong was stunned, smiled knowingly, nodded and said, Uncle sure knows how to drink. Sword of Coming Chapter 1152. A group of visitors rested under the vines, drank tea and listened to Taoist sermons, feasting their ears to the melodious sound of jade chimes. The aura of heaven and earth brought up rippled like running water, as if all the ancient branches and leaves near the Taoist temple had been washed, making them greener and greener. Since Huayang Palace had not yet issued an order to expel guests, they walked all the way to the Patriarch's palace and gradually climbed up along the main Shinto. From a wide field of vision, they could see the Defei Mountain Ferry in the distance. In the field of vision, the figures of Taoist officials could be seen. As small as an ant, coming and going like a shuttle. There is a huge cross-state dragon boat, which is the most eye-catching. It is 100 feet long and more than 10 feet wide. The head and tail scales and beards are all carved with gold ornaments. The buildings on the ship are like xianxia and yuyu, planted with ancient pines and strange cypresses, just like a complete Taoist temple. It is said that this famous ferry belonging to Tsuiwei Palace has a mystery hidden at the bottom of the cabin. Large iron coins are densely arranged like a tabletop, which is called successful money, to withstand the tilt of the hull caused by clouds, waves, wind and rain during the voyage. The young man with a fierce face was the first to break the silence and asked, the ancestor of the military strategist, Grandmaster Jiang, has been silent for thousands of years. This time he joins hands with his Taoist companions to come out again. The noise is not small and he must have a big plan. If you are him, what will we do? Use local materials and make some deductions. On the top of the mountain, Mao Zhui began to look at this group of children from aristocratic families with admiration. They were not very young and capable, but they were very courageous and bold. Ying Xian looked even more embarrassed. These troublemakers who knew nothing about the world really dared to talk about anything. However, it can be seen that Hong Nong Yang is indeed well informed. There are many Taoist officials in the dynasty who have never even heard of the surname of the ancestor of the military family. There was a young man holding a wicker that he stole from somewhere, shaking his wrist, walking leisurely and said with a smile, the first step is to enter the ancestral palace of the main military family. If you can use the Zhongtu martial arts temple as a private dojo, right? But Jiang Taigong, Mr. Wei and others are willing to give up. This is a huge problem that is destined to be unavoidable. If I go all out to attack the ancestors since I am a military strategist, I have to. Hey Grandmaster Jiang, Mr. Jiang, it's such a coincidence that they both have the surname Jiang. I don't know if that's right. One dares to ask and the other dares to answer. They are indeed a pair of brothers with different surnames who are very attached to each other just after they met. There is nothing taboo about talking about these things. Just like the Qi practitioners in the world who drank a little wine and said they wanted to fight by Yujing. But the problem is that they are in Defei Mountain at the moment, so it is always inappropriate. Secondly, even if the military strategists are of one mind and are willing to acknowledge him as their ancestor. Next, we have to look at the attitude of the Chinese Confucian temple. After all, Haoran is a world of scholars. The key is whether the ceremonial saint nods or not. Yisheng and Wensheng are two of them. Whether you acquiesce to this matter or hold a negative opinion is of course also important. In the end, even after passing these two passes, The top priority is whether the fishermen who refused to dock to allow the holy master to board the boat recognize the military master named Jiang or not. 3 invisible battlefields, layers of passes. It all depends on how the ancestor of the military strategist arranged his troops, passed the passes, beheaded the generals, and gradually attacked the city and built the stronghold. By accident, the man surnamed Jiang couldn't get along with the Confucian temple and insisted on quarreling with each other. The hard-earned era of peace will return to the chaotic world and become the same as our current world in Qingming. An ancient-looking old man said with a smile, "Is there a possibility that Jiang Taigong's fishermen will take the bait?" How to say? For example, the ancestral family of the military family has long wanted to fight together again, trying to make the first ancestor take the blame for himself, and eradicate the root of it justly? Is there someone else hiding behind the scenes who is ambitious and has been planning for a long time to take over the magpie's nest? What if the first ancestor of the military strategist and the fisherman had already been on the line, bypassing the Confucian temple and joining forces with the barbarians? Are they determined to completely change the world with one hand? Rearrange Howren? The topic was discussed together, everyone had their own opinions and there was a lot of discussion and chaos. On the top of the mountain Xian said, "The young man who started the topic first, Guan Liao, went by the pseudonym xianxia and is a casual cultivator. He seems to be from the Little Four prefectures, and he carries with him a strong water vapor unique to Luai's lake." Nan Chang had a different opinion. At first glance he looks like a libertine who steps on watermelon rinds. Shouldn't he just come back from enjoying the flowers at Luai's lake? Xian shook his head. Taoists usually travel, how can they stick to water transport? The 2 lake owners named Wang and Lei Yu, one is withdrawn and the other is unscrupulous. How can outsiders dare to show off? Mao Jue said, "It's hard to say what the specific sect's family education is, but it is certain that he has a close relationship with the Tai lineage. At least he has dealt with Wang, who likes to raise geese more than once or twice. Just say that the scholar around Shangjiao has a good background and is not something that ordinary people can control." Shanin Yuk's surname is Wang, Tao name is Tai, the owner of the dry lake in Xiaosizu, the old Taoist priest, and Lei Yu, who is from the demon clan, are all candidates. Nan Chang failed to see the background of the lazy book boy and asked curiously, "Strange or mysterious?" Weird, either an old immortal, who began to practice in ancient times or even ancient times, or an ancient object became a spirit, gave birth to a little true spirit, transformed into a human form, and embarked on the path of cultivation. Miraculous attributes are mostly the reincarnation of gods or the turning around of a certain great monk. Mao Jue said, "When we meet you can ask yourself." Nan Chang smiled sweetly and said, "Since I can't use magic to see through their deception, it's just like guessing lantern riddles. It's quite interesting." Mao Jue narrowed his eyes. For some reason he changed his mind temporarily and said to Xian beside him, "Xian, please pass on the message and allow them to go up the mountain. Let's meet and chat for a few words." It's really a mixed bag. There are more than 10 people in this mountaineering team. After careful research on the origins of their families and dojos, it turned out that there are at least 4 places. You would like to see the rhetoric, the talk on paper, and the nonsense. It's still true talent and practical learning with a clear goal. Xian's face was troubled. There was no set rule on how to treat guests here. It was said that no one came to congratulate Mao Jue for his promotion to the palace master. This was an isolated case in the mountains. Mao Jue said, "It doesn't matter, just go and stay at my house." Xian breathed a sigh of relief. In this way Huayang Palace's etiquette was quite sufficient. In this truly mixed mountaineering team, the Hongnong Yang family has a pair of siblings, 2 accompanying maids, and a guard. The apparent identity of the siblings who submitted the ultimatum at the mountain gate shows that they are not Taoist officials now, Yang Zheng or Yang Yu. The boy's name is not ordinary. The woman wearing a power fence has a graceful figure even though her face is covered. There is a maid on the side gently swinging a folding fan. The fan depicts a magpie on a branch, which means joy. The handsome young man wears a 3-mountain crown on his head, a refreshing deep purple straitjacket, and a sash tied around his waist. Xuanhuan looked arrogant and liked to look at people sideways and rarely looked at people directly. At this moment he was taking out a kind of oily honey which was nicknamed xylier, and offered it to his sister, who lifted up a corner of the rice cake and chewed it gently. One of the 2 maids has a soft face but looks like a man. She wears a narrow robe of variegated brocade and gold silk. The short knife hanging on her waist is extremely eye-catching. He was given the surname Yang and the given name Yupian. The other maid was called Luzhu and she was holding a round fan. She seemed to be a few years older but she was just pretty in appearance. She wore a small hat, a yellow embroidered wide shirt outside, and a narrow green shirt inside. A little further away from them, there was a lean man with a dull expression, as if he was trying to catch the young siblings and the miscellaneous people, who were climbing the mountain together. Hashtag every time verification appears, please do not use incognito mode. Separated. His true appearance is that of a sword-wielding man wearing 5-color armor and a faceplate to cover his face. He is tall and tall. His armor is wrapped with a gorgeous belt in the style of a snake made from ancient rituals. He looks like an ancient general. He wears a pair of cloud-head shoes like court boots. In addition to them there are 2 Qing guests of the Yang family. The old man has a strange face, 3 long beards and narrow eyebrows. They are like the statues of gods and ghosts in the ancestral temple, with a dark and ancient atmosphere. The middle-aged man next to him seemed to be a disciple, with a reserved look on his face. He couldn't help but glance at the maid holding the fan. There are 3 siblings with different surnames. Among them is a man named Xianxia, who is accompanied by a boy named Xiao Bing. Su Duan and the lean, taciturn red-faced man have been friends for many years and have met here. This time we traveled together to the mountains. Originally they had no intention of using any deceit or false ultimatums. They just followed the Hongnong Yang family's descendants to climb the mountain. The little book boy was sick and listless. It's like the coolness in the mountains making people drowsy. The red-faced man said from his heart, "Third brother, on the way here in an inconspicuous barren mountain field, I met an extraordinary person, a true hermit." Shang Jiao didn't take it seriously. Isn't he the kind of person who is just trying to gain fame? The red-faced man said, "I have been tested a lot, but my level is higher than mine anyway. Logically speaking, I shouldn't be so rash, but I really couldn't help it. Fortunately, the other party has a good temper and didn't care. If it were left to the outside world, there would probably be a fight. He doesn't seem to be very good at fighting with others, but his level is there. If I can't kill him with one blow, I will definitely be killed by him." Shang Jiao was shocked when he heard this. "Is the realm higher than yours?" One of the sworn brothers next to him is Luo Yi, whose Taoist name is Huaguan. He and Xuanhuan Wuxi are both among the 10 candidates in Qingming Tianxia. Of course, Shang Jiao has access to many strange people. When it comes to family background, friends and relationships with elders, among the younger generation, even the guy who gave Yang Jing a alias as a businessman in the entire Qingming world can be ranked high. Because of this, he dared to talk about this in the main Shinto of Difei Mountain, almost in front of Master Baigu. If he dares to make such a mistake relying on his identity and background, he is underestimating Shang Jiao, just because he is too familiar with Difei Mountain. The 2 sisters also wanted to see the place where their brother practiced Taoism in the past. The small Taoist temple where he just stopped to rest was where he spent his early years. The red-faced man nodded and said, "There is no doubt that he is definitely a level higher than me." Shang Jiao's eyes sparkled and he suddenly became interested. "I must help introduce you. It doesn't matter if you are rejected." The red-faced man smiled and said, "That's easy to say." Shang Jiao always had some wild ideas and asked everyone curiously, "Why do some ancient books describe Taoist ancestors with the saying that Tao is like a dragon? Isn't it the kind of spring and autumn writing style that praises and denigrates openly?" Everyone seemed to be stunned by the question and there was silence for a while. After all, when it comes to Daozu, no one can say anything nonsense. Even Xuanhuan couldn't help but look at Yang Jing. "Sister, brother, Shang Jiao's question is very tricky. Can you read a few more books and answer it?" The Meili woman shook her head. Shang Jiao continued to ask, "There is another description of a person's strategy, which is far superior to that of his peers at the same time. Why is he called great wisdom and almost a demon? Is this a compliment or a curse?" Still looking at each other. The ancient-looking old man who had been silent until now smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Shang, both of these statements actually have their origins." Shang Jiao's eyes were bright and he asked sincerely, "How do you say it?" The old man slowly said, "It is said that in ancient times, there was a naturally formed team that stretched extremely long on the road in the world, as if it stretched like a snake. During this period, Taoist priests heard the Tao, practiced and proved it, and they all performed the transformation of dragon and snake on land. The Taoist priests, when we were leaving, whether we were crying or laughing, we never forgot to kneel down and bow down to the Taoist priest who was walking in the front. Later, more Taoist priests joined in, and then there was a relatively simple bowing ceremony. The one walking at the end of the team is Dao Ancestor. In addition, one of the Taoist priests walking at the front of the group not only listens to the Taoism at a close distance, but also protects the Taoism part-time, and imparts the Dharma selflessly. If he hears something and understands it, he will take the initiative to preach behind him and never hide his secrets. Whenever there is a severe drought, he does not hesitate to expend his own energy, change his body shape, fly into the clouds and mist, perform water magic and bring down the rain, which is a great merit in the world. Unfortunately, the same people made a big mistake later and were hated by the gods. It's a doomed one, and only 1 in 10,000 can escape. As for the other metaphor, it describes a certain woman who is proficient in refining things. She is from the demon clan and has great wisdom, so it was not derogatory at all at the time. Hearing this, Xianxia sighed. How did the old gentleman know these old almanacs? The old man couldn't help laughing and asked, "Of course it's just hearsay, otherwise?" Xianxia laughed endlessly and begged for mercy with his fists in his hands. The old man seemed to be aroused by this topic. There were golden threads swimming in his eyes as deep as an ancient well, just like a dragon lurking in the abyss. Even though many years have passed, after all, they are all witnessed and experienced by Qi. It is difficult to forget things that are very close to Qi. There is no need to deceive yourself. Xuanhuan followed up and asked, "It's easy to talk about 5-color soil, but what about 10,000-year soil? Is it possible that the soil that can be seen everywhere in the world also has an age?" Jianghu is a talker. No wonder his sister Yangzheng always said that he should have been mute in his previous life, and he would make up for it in this life. The old man replied with a smile, "Among the 5 elements, earth is the hardest to maintain purity. If you don't believe it, just look down at our feet. If this earth, which carries all things and all living beings, is too clean, like, can that pure water feed fish?" The mealy woman nodded. This statement is extremely strange, profound, and indescribably wonderful. Xuanhuan immediately looked at the old man with admiration. The young man only knew that this Chinka of the Yang family, who called himself Deaf Taoist, was a member of the Han clan in Xiaosizu. He often went to the Yang family to catch the autumn wind. Discussing Taoism is just a small accomplishment in Taoism. He has been fond of collecting throughout his life and is good at connoisseurship. He is a master of editions and catalogs. Having met him twice in the family before, Jianghu thought he was just a talking celebrity who cheated on food and drinks, but he never thought he actually had some skills. The person who paid the least attention to these worldly affairs and couldn't even say a word was the absent-minded middle-aged man next to the ancient-looking old man. Xianxia saw that the man named Tiangong was bored, so he took the initiative to chat with him. After some chatting, he was no longer bored. The Communist Party of Tianjin only regarded Xianxia as a foil figure to himself, so he sympathized with him and chatted with him in a somewhat impure Yuzhou Mandarin, but he was grateful in his heart. Of course, it wasn't that Tiangong had for the maid named Luzhu. Tiangong didn't have the guts to do so. He couldn't reach out to anyone close to the direct descendants of the Hongnong Yang family, even if it was a maid. I always felt that her facial features were somewhat similar to those of a person from her hometown. So Tiangong couldn't bear it? 55? You have to take a few more looks to stay there, but Mr. Tian knew it, so it must be a coincidence. There is still a difference between a person's accent, whether it's weird or astringent. The same Yuzhou Mandarin made Jianghu feel awkward to others, but Tian Tsong knew that he was a foreigner from another state as soon as he spoke. There has always been a proverb in the world of Qingming: the sky is not afraid of the earth, but the people of Hongnong County, Yuzhou, are afraid of the official talk. Therefore, there is a joke that when chatting with the Hongnong Yang family's children, they either go in one ear and out the other or simply say nothing. As long as you still want to reply, you have to listen carefully, otherwise you will not understand at all. It was very difficult for Su Shiyuan to talk to Jiangsu. I traveled around Yuzhou with my 2 sisters before, and when I passed through Hongnong County, I experienced the power of the people there. For example, the women in the market scolded people, both viciously and cleverly, and they liked to scold older men. The old turtle called those idle libertines floating corpses. Another example is to scold yourself instead of your husband. You only need to say, "I will definitely be a widow in the future," which shows your skill. In addition, many ladies from Hongnong County can drink and sing boxing at banquets. Although the woman has a naturally soft voice, her posture is heroic, with her sleeves rolled up and her eyebrows raised, giving her a unique charm. The judges at the same table were listening to the boxing. It was really refreshing to enjoy the beautiful scenery. In fact, this Xianxia, whose real name is Su Shiyuan, and especially his 2 sisters, are both great men of virtue. The owner of Qingni Cave is Su Mian. The co-owner of Heaven and Earth, Su Yingzhu. There are 2 more mountain monks who have become one of the 10 candidates. Su Shiyuan glanced at the Meili women. It was a custom in their hometown that women who were about to get married would wear a feng hua shuiyu with money when they left the palace. It was rumored that the couple's love would last forever. This kind of money has heavy copper quality, beautiful writing and fine appearance. If a rich family builds a house and embeds it in the main beam, the owner will make a fortune. Marriage between aristocratic families, marrying a man and marrying a wife, is really like gambling. Once you buy it, you will leave it without returning it. It's a pity that such a beautiful woman has no intention of marrying her husband and raising children. She just shows her true feelings by this way and is married to Taoism for the rest of her life. When Su Shiyuan went out, he made up his mind that all the people in the world were brothers. Since his family was not weak, he would use money to clear the way and exchange real money for sincerity. When a friend borrows money from him, is that called borrowing? It means taking back the money deposited with him. The same goes for friends on the mountain who borrow magic weapons and spiritual books and secrets. In short, Su Shiyuan never let the word money be bigger than the word friend. Su Shiyuan asked sternly, "I dare to ask fellow Taoist Jinxing, why do you want to practice Taoism and become an immortal? Is there such a long-cherished destiny and long-cherished wish that when you accidentally remember it in this life, you have the heart to seek Taoism and the ambition to become an immortal?" This situation is common in the mountains. Tiangong has neither a disciple nor a disciple, so he has no Taoist title for the time being. However, similar to the self-title of the deaf Taoist, the Tian Communist Party's Taoist nickname Golden Sound will not be recorded by Yujing. Don't look at Su Ziyuan's casual remarks to Luo Yi. When he first met Yang Su, a proud man of heaven, he was even more generous. After getting acquainted with him a little, Yang Su was guessed, asking, Su Shiyuan could do anything. Unconcerned, he smiled and said, "No one knows more than his father." On the contrary, when dealing with Tiangong, he always attached great importance to etiquette, took care of him a lot along the way, and often asked for words when he had nothing to say so that Tiangong would not be at a loss and lose his way. Tian Tsong did not hide anything and said truthfully, "In the beginning I was seeking wealth and later I was seeking longevity." Su Shiyuan asked curiously, "After going through many hardships, I finally became a true immortal. How does Taoist Jin Sheng feel?" Tiangong said with embarrassment, "Brother Shangjiao is joking. What kind of am I? I'm already in my 40s and am still at the bottom of my career with no improvement in sight. I'm lucky to have met you and to be able to travel together. Along the way I just feel like it's just a lie." Su Shiyuan smiled and said, "I would like to ask, is the deaf Taoist your disciple? The territory of the Little Four Prefectures is not small. Bai Yujing's battle to encircle and suppress the alien demons caused a continent to sink into a lake, and the waters were vast. Many casual cultivators and private Taoist priests who could not deal with Bai Yujing liked to operate their influence here." Su Shiyuan was no stranger to the customs of Xiaosizu, and he had never heard of any deaf Taoist. Tiangong shook his head and did not want to say anything more. After all, it involves the extremely private Taoist lineage. Su Shiyuan did not ask any more questions, changed the subject and asked casually, "Fellow Taoist Jinxing, how do you view the matter of cultivation?" Tiangong thought for a moment and said, "To learn Taoism is to read ancient books." "Good argument." Su Shiyuan nodded and smiled, "Fellow Taoist Jinxing, if I have the chance, I'll treat you to a goose stewed in an iron pot." Before going up the mountain, Su Shiyuan learned through casual conversations that the farmer claimed that he had practiced cultivation in the immortal family since he was young, but that he had not been able to practice the Dharma. He suffered from the lack of guidance from a master, was deaf in one ear and had injuries to his organs. He then went out, seeking immortality, traveling across mountains and rivers, looking for enlightened people who can cure diseases and guide people to become immortals. Fortunately, there is no end to the road, and he found a cheap practitioner in the market who was playing in the world of mortals. After many tests, the master saw that he was firm in his Taoism, so he led him up the mountain and practiced a genuine immortal method. That's why Su Shiyuan guessed that the deaf Taoist was the tutor of the Tian Tsong who went astray in the past and lost one ear. Su Shiyuan once thought that the best candidate to be a disciple was Gao Gu of Huayang Palace. For this reason, he made a special trip to a Taoist temple in Daifishan Mountain and became the resident Taoist priest. He remained anonymous for more than 100 years and learned the 8 classics seriously. Talisman, I started to refine the elixir honestly. It's a pity that Gao Gu has been watching Su Shiyuan for several years, but never fell in love with Su Shiyuan. Perhaps he didn't want the young man to continue to waste his time, so he took the initiative to show up and persuade him to go down the mountain and find another master. Gaogu has made his position so clear that Su Shiyuan can't help but stay in the Taoist temple, especially since Gaogu also suggested that he go to Xiaosizu. Only then did Su Shiyuan go there, and he actually got to know the old man who raised geese. The Taoist priests learned many techniques from Wang, but they did not have the status of master and disciple. Tian Tsong only regarded it as a polite word, smiled and nodded in agreement. When a person is in a foreign land, wandering and helpless, he is inevitably lonely. It is an unexpected joy for him to find a friend who meets him. Luo Yi knew the inside story and was helpless. Su Ziyuan's goose stewed in an iron pot. If you can't help it, don't eat it. Su Shiyuan laughed from the bottom of his heart and said, fellow Taoist Jin Sheng like me, you all use a pseudonym, right? Tiangong hesitated for a moment and nodded. Su Shiyuan patted Tiangong on the shoulder. To be honest, my real name is quite famous. Just don't mention it. Making friends requires heart-to-heart communication, not names. Tiangong smiled and said, my real name is unknown. It doesn't matter whether I say it or not. Su Shiyuan held Tiangong's shoulders and lowered his voice. Then let's talk about it and tell us our real names? Tian Tsong just shook his head. Su Shiyuan lowered his voice and said, actually my surname is Chen and my first name is Pingon. It's good for you to know. Don't spread it outside. Tiangong was stunned on the spot and looked at this person blankly. I don't know if I was shocked by Shang Jiao's shamelessness, or if I suspected that I had made a mistake and mistook Shang Jiao as the kind of person who could be a friend. It turned out that I was warm and attentive, but they were all other people's. Joking behavior? Su Mian suddenly stared when he heard this and reminded him in his heart, remember not to call Yingguan by name. Hashtag every time verification appears, please do not use incognito mode. Su Shiyuan was frustrated. Huang Zhen patted the back of Su Ziyuan's hand and said with a smile, since Taoist friend Shang Jiao has made the secret, I have to be wise. The single name, wood, water, fire and earth are all fake. Su Shiyuan let go of his hand and was confused. At this time, a Taoist priest from Huayang Palace came up the mountain and said that the palace master wanted to invite you all. While I was still thinking, my sister Suingjia smiled and helped to answer the question. Wood, water, fire and earth, among the 5 elements, there is still gold missing. Since they are all false, there must be something true. Adding the true character to the radical of the word gold means town? The Taoist nickname of Yu Tiangong also matches. A single name contains the word town. Su Shiyuan suddenly realized, single name town? So what about the real last name? Su Ying saw that his younger brother was confused and would ignore such obvious clues. Isn't the name of Tian Communist Party the answer? Just when she was about to solve the riddle for him, she looked up and saw the couplets on the plaque of Xuanhuan Tower, and changed her mind. Luo Yi asked, why are you so interested in this Tiangong? Su Shiyuan joked, why do you think our Qinsong brothers have ordinary qualifications, smell of earthiness and can't stand the Derma's eyes? You are a mud-legged person who looks down on mud-legged people. Luo Yi laughed dumbly. Scholars all like to tell lies. As the founding emperor of the largest dynasty in a state, Luo Yi is only good at making scholars cut off their heads one by one. In fact, Luo Yi came from a very low background. He rose from a small soldier in the border army to his current high position step by step. Naturally, he would not look down on him just because he saw that the Tian Communist Party was not from a wealthy family. Besides, what does a wealthy family mean? Think back to that year when Xuanhuan decided to launch the founding of the People's Republic of China. When his soldiers and horses entered the old capital, several streets were filled with blood, all from the mansions of the yellow and purple princes. The flow-out will make the horses' hooves slip. At that time, there were conspirators around me who advised me that this move was inappropriate. Ignore it? If you kill too many people, you will easily lose people's hearts. It will not look good in the history books of future generations. Luo Yi sat high on the horse with a calm expression and just replied, I have to take care of it, the knife is too slow. Su Shiyuan said quietly, my 2 sisters are famous for their high vision and accurate judgment of people. I won't mention what they think of brother Wuxi. I'm just talking about you. Glancing at Su Mian, the stoic man hummed and remained silent for a moment. If you don't speak the same language as one family, you will call me brother-in-law from now on. Wuxi did not proclaim himself emperor like Luo Yi, but he was recognized as the supreme emperor by the entire Peizhou. As a result, on the border of Yongzhou, Zhu Xian, the empress of the Yufu dynasty, seemed to have lost her mind and went crazy. She acted arbitrarily and built the universal jiao, divination of the four states. Peizhou happens to be one of them. As a result, it was naturally impossible for Wu Shi to accompany his two sworn brothers on a trip. Especially the destination is Huayang Palace. If Wu Shi dares to show up at Difei Mountain at this time, it is estimated that in the eyes of Baiyujing Taoist officials, it will be the same as that of a rebellion. In the early years, after learning that Lizhu Cave had fallen from the sky and was consecrated as a blessed place, the ambitious Wu Shi had always wanted to find an opportunity to travel around the world and invite the true Dragon King Zhu to Qingming World. When they reached the top of the mountain, Yin of Cuiwei Palace and the south wall of Dama Temple had been waiting for a long time. Palace Master Mao Jue was not waiting at the door. Indeed, even if the head of the Hongnong family arrived, he might not be able to treat Mao Jue, who has a double clone, well. Yin Xian led them into the courtyard of Palace Master Mao. There was a main room with an 8 immortals table and 4 wooden stools. They were all made from nearby materials and chopped by Mao Jue himself. The main room had neither a plaque nor a shrine. The rooms on both sides, everywhere is Mao Jue's residence, and the other is a study room. There are no doors, so you can have an unobstructed view of the scenery inside the house. Those descendants of the Yang family from Hongnong who were born in Huazhou were very curious. It was probably the first time for them to see this kind of humble house as mentioned in the book, a common people's house. Xuanhuan casually found an excuse and ran alone to the Guanyu pavilion on the other side of the deep pool. Seeing no one around, the boy became playful. Suddenly, a golden rooster stood alone, put his fingers together, widened his eyes and muttered something. Hey, snakes in the North River, dragons in the West Lake, fish in the Southern Ocean and carps in the East China Sea, don't take a quick look at them. Don't underestimate them. How can the gods be things in the pond? They will turn into dragons when encountering wind and clouds. Yang Huang found that the deaf Taoist and Na Tian were not sitting there, so they also came here for a walk. The young man lost interest and went to Huayang Palace to learn more from Master Mao. After entering the yard and crossing the threshold of the main room, I saw that my sister had already picked up the power fence. Wow, it was so beautiful. Yang Huang smiled brightly and asked directly, Palace Master Mao, can I go in and take a look at the study? Mao Jue said, whatever. Without waiting for Yang Zheng to stop him, the young man had already hurried to the study room, staring at the several documents from the study room on the table. His eyes stopped on an inkstone with ink left on it and he murmured to himself, this kind of bricks and tiles, I know that the inkstone has its own uniqueness, but no matter how I look at it, I can't tell that it's any good. Of course this phrase means something. Since you, Mao Jue, can be favored by Gaogu, your Taoism is of course superb. But forgive me for my blindness, I can't see your extraordinary uniqueness. The woman wearing a power fence reprimanded him in her heart not to be rude. If he dared to say another word, he would immediately go down the mountain. At the same time she smiled softly and said, when a young man appreciates inkstones, he only looks at their beauty and does not care about their ugliness. In the final analysis, still not enough experience and accumulation. Yang Huang quickly clasped his fists towards the main room and begged for mercy. Good sister, stop scolding me. I finally climbed over the wall and sneaked out. I have been scolded countless times and I am full of scolds. Probably because he was a member of the noble family, he couldn't hide his arrogance. Even though he got Yang Zheng's gift, he still didn't say hello to the owner. He picked up the square inkstone on the table without permission and read the contents of the inkstone at will. The sword light suddenly rises, awakening Li Long, who is trapped in the mud pond, and has been sleeping for a long time. The rivers and lakes are wet with foam, the night is long and the water is cold, and the pearls on the chin are like lamps. The wind and thunder force him and his scales and beard spread out. In the darkroom for thousands of years, my soul is ruthless. A single point makes it clear and everything in the sky and the earth is illuminated. Not to mention Yin Xian, who was the most disciplined person, felt that the boy was rude. Even Nan Chong, who was already informal enough, couldn't help but frown. Do you really regard Huayang Palace as your own home? On the contrary, Mao Jue still had Gu Jing's unwavering attitude. In the past, I set up a stall outside Zuxiguan to rent comic books. After I closed the stall, I found that the comic books were full of fingerprints and even snot. Yang Zheng stood up, went to the study, grabbed the young man's ears and pushed him down on the bench. Previously, Mao Jue stood at the door watching the guests filing in. The first sight of Master Bai Gu fell on the maid behind the mealy woman. How brave you are to come to Difei Mountain. Mao Jue looked at the escaped young man, at this moment, the real master. In Guanyu Pavilion, The old man seemed to be able to isolate himself from the world by the water without the need for words. He was confident that he could hide it from the old man with white bones. He smiled and said, "Too many words lead to mistakes. You shouldn't mention your name to Xianxia. It's just one thing. His family has a big business and he can't afford to lose anything if he makes a mistake. Can you? Of course you can't. If you make one wrong move, you will suffer a fate of eternal disaster. It's the same as entrusting you to my care, not for you to make mistakes. If you are a dumb person, you will know your own suffering. Be careful when you go out and learn more from the Yingguan of similar age. One who can turn a gloomy life into magnificence is a hero." Sword of Coming Chapter 1153. Lu Shi glanced at the sacred road that went up the mountain like it reached the sky and said with a smile, "Wei Shenjun, Master Lu, you continue to talk about your business and we will just drink our tea." Lu Xun looked a little embarrassed and Qin Pingan was not in the mountains, so there was no point in talking to Wei Bo. "When I came out this time, I mentioned Ma Kexuan's direct biography, which was just to sell it to Luo Luoshan at a low price, and there was nothing more serious to talk about. What's more, Lu Xun didn't even want to see Jing Juzhong, let alone talking to him at the same table. It would be a waste of energy. As for Lu Shi, when Lu Xun was young, he had to participate in an ancient sacrificial ceremony held by the abbot of the Lu family every year. He also played the role of a Xinga Taoist priest who went to the altar several times to recite congratulations, and the main priest who held the incense. The name taboo written is the true name of Lu Shi. Lu Fang seemed to be unwilling to let Lu Xun go just like that. He had a family background of reading and a good way of studying. He committed crimes during the day, blocked roads and robbed people and killed people in back alleys. It is better than being a Buddha during the day or a ghost at night. Just like a landlord beating a tenant farmer in front of his face, the situation was beyond his control, so Lu Xun had no choice but to sit down after hearing this. Lu Shi and Zheng Juzhong, when they appeared together, whoever saw them would be stunned. Qin Lingjun was confused when he heard this and glanced at Wei Yao. He was indeed a good brother from Piyun Mountain, and he was as lost in the clouds as himself. Wei Bo was surprised as to why Lu Shi and Zheng Juzhong appeared together. He was even more curious about their trip. Is there any priority between the two parties? What did they want to ask for advice from Lu Xun? When she heard that the distinguished guests wanted to drink tea, Xiaomili asked them to wait a moment, then went to boil water. Taoist priest Xianhui also went to get the wild tea picked and roasted by the old cook himself. A table was placed at the foot of the mountain, and Lu Shi naturally sat on the main seat with his back to Luolu Mountain. The owner of the mountain was not at home, so Wei Bo acted as the host. Zheng Juzhong sat opposite Wei Bo. Lu Xun then sat with Lu Shi, who was sitting north and facing south. "On the contrary, I would like to accompany you to the last seat." The boy in green had just accepted a cheap relative and had been promoted a generation in vain. At the moment, he was busy grinning silly and cheerfully, and was not aware of the undercurrent at this table. Wei Bo and Lu Xun looked at each other with disgust, but they treated a being like Lu Shi, a high-ranking mountain and a yin-yang family who investigated the 5 elements of heaven, with far more courtesy than ordinary monks. Seeing Lu Shi, who was born from the manifestation of vast heaven and earth, was a rare seeing the way. It was like a businessman complaining that he had never seen big money in his life, and then he saw Lu Jubao alive. Lu Fan was beside him. Although Wei Bo was a little reserved, he was not as silent as a cicada. Since Lu Fan was interested in listening, Wei Bo was happy to help Qin Pingan, Luo Luoshan and Lu Fan gain some momentum. Wei Bo let out a laugh. Continuing the previous topic, Qi. What is Yi Qi? The word Qi means rugged mountains and rocks, barren and rough, sparse vegetation and lack of vitality. According to the saying on the mountain, it is an empty mountain, similar to straight water. According to the common principles of feng shui, Luopa mountain is large and empty, so it is not easy to gather qi, so it is not suitable to be opened as a Taoist temple. Either an empty mountain consumes the spirit of the practitioner, or the Taoist needs to bring many foreign objects and rare treasures to fill the hole in the feng shui. In short, it is easy for the trainer and the dojo to conflict. In this case, what is the use of buying such a dojo? Lu Xun said, on the surface this mountain is really useless, so it is not in the eyes of ordinary qi practitioners. However, in the long run, it is consistent with Qin Pingan's fate. Wei Bo sneered and said, Lu Wei is an immortal after all, why not take Luopa mountain to safety first? Taking a step back, the Lu family has the advantage of first move, so they should cast a wide net, let alone Luopa mountain. If we include Tiandu Peak, Tiaoyu Mountain, and Fuyao foothills in a line in the south, what's the problem? Please enlighten me. At that time, the empress of the Great Li dynasty, Nanhan, whose real name was Lu Jiang, had not yet become the abandoned son of the Lu family in China. She was extremely powerful in the court. At least half of the spies were under her control. At that time, everyone would think that they belonged to the late emperor. A kind of check and balance technique. Xianhu manages the government, vassal King Song Changjing is in charge of the border army, and Nanhao handles intelligence. Among the three they will mix sand with each other plus those with surnames from Xiangzhou Kingdom. In short, no one is allowed when one party becomes more powerful. It has the opportunity to arbitrarily determine the direction of the government and exercise dictatorship. History can explain 99 of 100 things, but there is always one thing that creates new history for future generations to learn from. Lu Xun shook his head. I can't do it. I have enough will but not enough strength. Lu Fang smiled and explained on his behalf. Lu Wei was once severely punished by Mr. Qi. He was wronged and felt guilty, so he did not dare to stretch his hand too far. When Xianhu takes over this place, Mr. Lu will want to do something. For example, if Lu Xun wants to use Tiandu Peak as a place to stay and start again, he must first ask Xianhu about his intention. If yes, he can land on Aquarius continent. If not, he must fight. Go back home and look for another opportunity. Qin Lingjun was stunned when he heard this. How could that embroidered tiger act so domineeringly? I remember the last time we met it was quite easy to talk. Could it be that when the imperial master saw that he had extraordinary abilities, he favored him and gave him special treatment? Zheng Zhuzhong didn't seem interested in the conversation and just looked at the table. In fact, on the country road earlier, Zheng Zhuzhong did not intercept Zhao Shuxia's inner thoughts. He only briefly explained a few words to Wei Bo, to the effect that Lu Shi wanted to visit Qin Pinggan's school. Of course Wei Bo could trust Zheng. Centered. The problem is that even if he can't believe it, what can he do? Wei Bo can only wait until Qin Pinggan returns before mentioning the matter again, giving Qin Pinggan a headache. Lu Shi glanced at Lu Shen. It's true that you can't do it, but it's an irony to have more than enough will but not enough strength. It's true to have more than enough strength but not enough confidence. I guess Chui Chan walked up to Tiandu Peak to find you. Chui Chan must have known it for a long time, and you didn't dare to gamble. For example, Chui Chan would deliberately persuade you to let Lu make a big bet on Aquarius Island, so you really don't want him to help you deal with Zozi? I dare to bet. I can only help Chui Zhan keep an eye on Qin Shan's travels, including Beipingzu, Chuhai, Jianqi Great Wall, Tonggizhao, Shujian Lake, Beiju Luzhou. Just like the new leader who replaced Lin Jingqing, Chui Chan and the Great Li Court can use a master of the Yinyang family who has reached the Ascended Realm for free without paying a salary. Lu Xun will only pay more attention to every contact between Zhou Zi and Qin Pinggan. Lu Xun remained silent. At this table today, it is easy to say too much and make many mistakes. Wei Bo sighed in his heart. If Lu Xun had dared to gamble back then, and with the help of the Lu family in China, the two battles at Laolong City in the south of Aquarius continent and Dali capital in the central part would have only made the wilderness more painful? The reason why Lu Xun didn't nod was of course because he didn't think Xianhu had the strength to compete with Zhou Zi. It was absolutely impossible. Lu Xun was extremely certain of one thing at that time. Yuchui hashtag every time verification appears, please do not use incognito mode. No matter how powerful Zhan is, the 200-year-old Dao Ling is right there, and there is no way he is qualified to be on an equal footing with Zhou Zi. Anyway, he had already taken his seat, so he was content with what he had come. Lu Xun, while guessing what Zheng Zhuzhong really wanted during his trip, asked, when Master Qin went south, was it because of his own heart or because of the guidance of an expert? Wei Bo shook his head and said, Qin Pinggan never mentioned this matter. Lu Xun didn't ask Wei Bo at first, he just hoped that Lu Shi would say more about this matter. When Luopa Mountain was founded, although Qin Pinggan obtained the land deed from the Dali court, it was indeed not suitable to live in the mountain for a long time, as it would easily strip away the vitality. Just because that was when Qin Pinggan was at his most turbulent and weak. Since the water and soil in the mountain could not support people for the time being, he would not be able to support the mountain, and would only hurt each other. So the best choice is to leave Luolu Mountain temporarily. Most people think that the young man's trip to see Ning Yao at the Sword Qi Great Wall was the only reason why he sent the sword. Lu Xun could naturally see a deeper level, and there must have been an expert's guidance to make Qin Pinggan leave the town in such a hurry. Qin Lingjun's expression moved slightly, Wei Ba's eyes suddenly became sharp. Qin Lingjun felt extremely wronged. Wei Yao, am not a fool, can I tell outsiders about this kind of family matter? In fact, Qin Pinggan's trip south was indeed very particular. Old man Yang from the medicine shop came forward in person and asked Li Shixing, who had gone to Luolu Mountain, to help with a fortune-telling, and he came to the saying that, the road goes straight, and the benefits lie in the south. Note 1, Chapter 192, the writing is like a god. Lu Qi sighed, 10,000 years have passed and 10,000 years have passed, and a new book has appeared in the world. How to date the era and define the beginning is a great question of scholarship in Taoism. Just speaking of my opinions on this matter, you Mr. Lu and Mr. Yunlin Jiang, are not considered hindsight, although it is still somewhat suspected of being an accident. The first hexagram in the human world, which is known as the first of all scriptures, is the Qin hexagram. Lu Xun, what do you have in mind about this? The dignified head of the Lu family was just like Meng Tong, who was asked a question in the school examination by his master. Lu Xun did not dare to take it lightly, carefully crafted his words and said slowly, the host and the guest are evenly matched. There are 4 kinds of manifestations and concealments. First, in the entire human world, only within the Lizhu cave, the ancient Shinto and the current Tao, is a kind of hidden, even inverted, host-guest relationship. In contrast, the town is the place where the true dragon fell, and it is an inversion of the 3 religions in the outside world. They had to use 4 heavy treasures to suppress the true dragon energy. Secondly, the future Lord Qin Shan and Lord Dong Haihai formed a contract at that time. Thirdly, someone on the table was hidden from everyone else. It's obvious. No one knew who this someone was at the time. I'm afraid even the person setting the table at the drugstore didn't know who it was. In the past, there was an iron lock well in the town, which was used to imprison the evil dragon. It snowed heavily at night, and the trapped dragon finally found water. She secretly formed an equal contract with Chen Pinggan in Mubwa Alley, and ostensibly became Song Jisin's maid. Wang Zhu not only used the luck of Song Jisin, the son of the dragon, as food, but Jigue also cut through a wall to steal and eat away at the luck of Chen Pinggan next door. Whether it is annotating scriptures or interpreting hexagrams, Qi Jingchun is the first person to truly explore the secrets of heaven, but the price he needs to pay for it is indeed a bit high. Teacher Lu's solution is to be a disciple of heaven. It can be regarded as second. Cui Chan doesn't care about people, he only cares about things. He is responsible for finishing the chessboard. The last place becomes the first place in a different way. Lu Feng, who had been patiently listening to Lu Shen's exegesis, smiled and said, is this the only high opinion the Lu family has? Zheng Juzhong finally spoke and added, it's still an open book test. Seeing that Lu Shen was so exhausted, Wei Ba's depressed mood was somewhat relieved. However, the boy in green hurriedly winked at Zheng Juzhong and reminded Zheng Shi's nephew, in his heart, that the guy's surname is Lu. If he is an expert of the Lu family in China, don't be quick to talk and be resented by him. You also advise your friends around you who like to talk big words to scare people, just say your big words well. Don't be like Mr. Wei Shanjun, who always carries a gun and a stick, making insinuations and just criticizes the master of the Lu family if something goes wrong. If this master of the Lu family is really related to the master of the Lu family, who was ranked very high in the collection of passers-by, I can't protect that friend of yours. Zheng Juzhong laughed in his heart and said, it can't be such a coincidence, right? The person named Zheng is Zheng Juzhong, and the person named Lu is related to the Lu family in Zhongtu? Qin Lingjun became anxious and responded with sincere words, nephew, you don't know something. I and people named Lu have never gotten along well, so don't let me get involved. To be honest, there was a very unscrupulous man named Lu before. The Taoist priest came to the mountain. Forget it, you are not a hero if you speak ill of people behind their backs. That guy is still very powerful, but I don't like it, so it doesn't hinder his greatness. As for who he is, what his name is, just go with his identity. Yes, the way is up to the sky, guess it? Anyway, please advise your friend, don't save face for me, you might as well tell him directly, just say that I, Qin Lingjun, and the man named Lu have some mysterious fate to conflict with each other, so tell your friend to take it easy, and you are not talking to others when you are away from home. Why bother to decide the winner with words? There is no winner in any quarrel in the world. Zheng Juzhong said, I told my friend about it, but he didn't seem to appreciate it. He replied, saying that my uncle, who is a senior, is too timid. Qin Lingjun stared. Lu Feng was helpless. Of course he would not speak like this. Mr. Zheng, are you addicted to pretending to be a nephew? Regarding the matter of fortune-telling, Qin Lingjun was with Zheng Dafeng and Xian Wei, and listened to some of their conversations. The general idea is that a gentleman does not need to tell fortunes. All you need to do is have a clear conscience, cultivate your virtues and accumulate Taoist power. Just like those who worship sages in the Confucian temple and ask for advice from the most holy teachers. They always ask about benevolence but never ask about it. It's just that there is no need to ask more about Tao. The road is not far away from people and they will never leave you for a moment. With profound knowledge and cultivation, you will naturally be able to know destiny. As they chatted, Qianlingjun was a little impressed with them, and soon began to show his true colors. Zheng Dafeng stretched out his palm and asked Xianwei, "You are a Taoist priest who has set up a stall to tell fortunes for many years. I want to help my brother read his palm to see what his future marriage will be like and whether he will have good luck in love in the near future. If we don't talk about the death of the chief waterlog that week, we can't die of drought." Lu Xun hesitated again and again, but still asked Zheng Juzhong from the bottom of his heart, "I dare to ask Mr. Zheng what will happen this time? Waiting for a rabbit, what do you want?" Any mountaintop monk with profound spiritual power is not tireless, cautious, and seeking his own path? 55. Wei Shi from Azu and Huolong Jinren from Luzhou and Beiju failed to join the Tao twice. There are also the god of wealth Lu Jubao and the businessman Mr. Fan, both of whom seek enlightenment on the word money. There is also the great Ascension Realm demon of Middle-earth who was killed by Bai Yi when he left the dojo with his sword. How difficult it was to deal with. The dojo is bordered by the underworld. If it hadn't tried every possible means to seek the way but was hopeless, how could it have been unstable and tried to make a desperate move? The act of pulling out the house, in the hope that it would be a rebellion against the Tao, would disturb the world of the underworld, and the borders of more than 10 countries would be blurred, and it would also lead to the calamity of weapons and swords. Note 2, Chapter 4:15, the most proud in the world. Lu Xun's seemingly understated, extreme pain, can be said to express the feelings of the monks on the mountain. Of course, Lu Xun was afraid that there would be Zhou Zi blocking the way, and Zheng Juzhong blocking the way. Zheng Juzhong gave the answer straightforwardly, borrowing books to kill people. Lu Xun could not help but wonder, what book should I borrow? Kill whom? The young Taoist priest and the little girl in black always cooperated tacitly, fetching water and making tea with a clear division of labor. They walked quickly on the way to the house. Xian Wei sighed for no reason. That Qinbian Taoist priest must be an expert. Xiamili asked curiously, "Why?" The Xian Wei hesitated for a moment and said in his heart, "There is no trace of humanity in him." Xiaomili suddenly said, "I know that if you are successful in practicing Taoism, you will not touch the world of mortals, and you will have a fairy spirit. This is what the books say." Xianwei and Xiamili looked at each other with a clear understanding of each other, and laughed loudly at the same time. "We are not good at it, very bad at it. We don't have the demeanor of gods and we are missing a lot of meaning." Entering the room, Xianwei let out a sigh. Several tin cans were empty and there were no tea leaves. Zheng Dafeng came here at some unknown time and leaned against the door. There was number 300 taels of silver in this place. He gave a lame excuse. Could it be that he was attacked by a thief? If you don't steal gold, silver and tea, you are a thief of elegance. Xianwei was a little embarrassed. Zheng Dafeng patted his head and said, "I remember, Grandmaster Wen made himself a cup of tea when he had something to do recently, and he was full of praise for the tea." Xiaomili said, don't panic, I will go to Sister Nuanshu Jianghu to help." Zheng Dafeng smiled lazily and said, "The immortal lieutenant can just bring out the best tea ready-made in the house. There is no need to be too serious and mobilize the troops, but it will appear that we are flattering. The passing woodcutter can drink it, but the immortal master who is here as a guest cannot drink it. No such a road." Xiaomili glanced at Xianwei who nodded. As expected, it was Brother Dafeng who decided, "That's it." While Xiaomili ran to boil the water, Xianwei asked curiously, "Brother Dafeng, that fellow Taoist Lu, can't he be the Lu from the Lu family in Middle-earth? After all, Taoist Master Xianwei is not that little fool like Qianlingjun." Zheng Dafeng nodded and said with a smile, "Tianbian God, with such a big Taoist name and such a big name, it is reasonable to have a bigger surname so that it can be suppressed. Not only does Lu Xun have the surname Lu, he also controls the entire family and everyone with the surname Lu. Well, the ones hanging on the wall don't count. After all, Lu Xun has not yet reached the 14th level. Moreover, even if he becomes one day, he still seems to have no control over them. Are Mr. Lu who sets up a fortune teller." That is to say, Xianwei came a little late, otherwise Zheng Dafeng would have dragged him to give Lu Chen his head every day, and this kind of excitement would have been in vain. The head of the Lu family is in the Ascension realm? The Xianwei clicked his tongue in surprise. I've met a big shot. Zheng Dafeng said with a smile. We are meeting a big shot. Xianwei said with emotion. I have gained a lot of experience by settling down here. Zheng Dafeng rubbed his chin, raised his head to look at the sky and said with a smile. The sky sends murderous intentions and dragons and snakes rise from the ground. People send murderous intentions and the world turns upside down. The Xianwei waited patiently for the millet grains to boil the water and said casually, I think the storm will come from the sky and a gentleman will respect it. Dragons and snakes rise from the land, heroes emerge in large numbers, and there is full of vitality. Zheng Dafeng crossed his arms across his chest, lowered his eyes and looked at the yard. You are right, I want to lend you some good words. I am just a martial artist who uses fists and kicks, but you are a serious Taoist. You always talk. More reliable than me. The spread of the Taoism of the founders of the three religions is like a return to the world for the entire human world, and Luo Mountain will be no exception. The Xianwei laughed it off. Brother Dafeng always likes to say weird things that don't make sense. He is so thin-skinned that he is too embarrassed to accept it calmly. Zheng Dafeng sighed. Logically speaking, the Lu family in China originally had the opportunity to cooperate with Luo Shan. I'm afraid that it's obviously a good thing that can benefit each other, but the person who actually handles it is a mediocre person who fails more than succeeds and likes to be smart. Wu Shou from Baofengzai, Cui Chan from Aquarius continent, and Qin Pingan from Tongya continent all encountered obstacles. It was the founder Zhang Ji who personally showed up to mediate and sorted out the mess. Lu Wei, who had been planning in Liju Cave for a long time, was in a similar situation to the Lu family of the Yin-Yang family, or the family leader Lu Shen. Lu Shen will either make up for the situation or continue to do so. When God dozes off. Some visitors never knock on the door in the cold winter, while others know how to stop and wait outside the door. Yunlin Jiang's family is very stable. Even if she notices changes in the heavenly secrets, she still has the patience to endure and does not dare to act rashly. At most, they just beat around the bush and ask Jiang Yun, a concubine, to come here to seek opportunities and take the opportunity to explore the depths. He would never bet all his wealth and life on this. What's more, a screen was set up and Lu Laoqing moved out Shujian Lake to prevent disasters. In any case, Aquarius continent's first 5-level wild cultivator in the past 1,000 years must be blessed with good fortune. The master-disciple relationship between Lu Laoqing and Jiang Yun is like the screen wall at the family house at the foot of the mountain, which can replace Yunlin Jiang family blocks evil spirits. Although in the Dali Palace, Lu Wei had proposed cooperation with Chen Pingan. But Lu Wei's proposal at that time seemed too insincere, and he simply treated Chen Pingan as a fool. Chen Pingan revealed the secret and exposed the Lu family's plan. Through the Earth Mirror chapter, he selected a hilltop corresponding to Luolu Mountain to survey the latitude and longitude veins of the 3 Yuans and 9 Lux, the Liuja talisman and so on. It can not only survey geography, but also observe celestial phenomena. Maybe this is Lu Shen's fault. Every time verification appears, please do not use incognito mode. The method of the Bureau attempts to break the invisible barriers set by Zhou Zi, Law of the Sky and the Earth, and finally merge into the 14th realm of Tao. Previously, Zheng Qingjia came to Luapa Mountain to find Xiaoma to acknowledge her ancestors and return to the clan. Zheng Dafeng had answered her humbly asking some questions, but the latter had little knowledge after all and did not hear the implication of Zheng Dafeng's words, and she could not take the opportunity to deduce more details. Lots of amazing inside information. For example, 3 souls and 7 souls are linked to life and death. When a person is alive in the world, his soul is unified and his body and soul are in harmony. Therefore, after death, the soul ascends to heaven and the soul body falls to the ground, each in its own place. Therefore, a series of sacrificial rituals and incense rituals were derived. The gods in temples and the souls in tombs were prayed for, and they were worshipped and received incense respectively. In the ancient site of the heavenly palace, the god's throne has existed forever. For thousands of years, it has never lacked its throne due to the collapse of the heavenly way. Old Man Yang, or the Qingtong Tianjun, one of the 12 high-ranking gods, holds an ascension platform in his hand to hide the sky from the sky. The place where the real dragon fell is also used to confuse the sky, and even the old sword hanging at the bottom of the bridge, it is still a blindfold. The truth that Old Man Yang really wants to hide is to restore the divine way and create half a person in the world. He, or she, will eventually take over the lonely mountain in the west, and eventually compete with that high mountain. The ruins of the ancient heaven have been hanging for countless thousands of years, and the sky and the earth echo each other from afar. That's why Old Man Yang asked Qin Pingan why he chose that bird-free mountain. After a moment of silence, Zheng Dafeng suddenly asked, Xianwei, every time you close your book in the dead of night, think alone, and look back on your life, do you occasionally feel that Luo Shanshan has bad intentions, but in fact he treats you as a piece of jewelry to be sold? Baby? The young Taoist priest was full of energy, speaking completely from his heart, and blurted out, I can't get what I asked for. He never expected such an answer. Zheng Dafeng was so confused that he couldn't help but ask, why? The Xianwei laughed endlessly and raised his chin towards Luo Shan Xiao Er Bao Shun, who had been pricking up his ears. He signaled to our brother Dafeng that he was really enlightened. Xiaomili, please help answer the questions. Xiaomili chatted with Taoist Master Xianwei for a long time, and he understood the gatekeeper's thinking best. You must first be a valuable treasure before people can wait for it to be sold. The truth is simple and easy to understand. Xianwei gave a thumbs up to Xiaomili and said with a smile, and I believe you. Zheng Dafeng asked, don't you believe Qin Pingan? Xianwei Saran said, I don't fully believe how kind the mountain master is to me. I have been in the world for many years, and it really makes people dare not trust anyone easily. It takes time to see the truth. But after so many years, the mountain master, I see how I treat you and how you treat the mountain master. Since I know it in my heart, there is nothing to worry about. Just sleep hard, watch the door diligently, earn money as you should, and practice Taoism seriously. Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, have you become accustomed to being hungry or afraid of poverty? You will be afraid that you won't know the truth until you are old. It turns out that you have been living a miserable life with that sagar all your life. Not to mention the old porcelain that was broken and thrown into the old porcelain. Some of the porcelain from the mountains went to the houses of emperors, princes, generals and ministers, and they were always used in the palaces. What's more, even the fragments of the old porcelain mountains were a good foundation for imperial kills. The Xianwei stopped talking. Zheng Dafeng asked, do you have a different opinion? The Xianwei chuckled softly and said, I always feel that the world is a sagar, and all of us are sagars. As for the so-called exquisite porcelain, it can make people's hearts be kind, and their eyes are full of green mountains and green waters. It can be a child's carefreeness. The old man dies and the lover finally gets married. Zheng Dafeng didn't know how to refute for a while. Xiaomili said confusedly, that immortal chief was born in the Lu family of Middle-earth? That's the most famous surname in the world. Or is he the head of the family? He doesn't look very rich and powerful, he's quite kind. Zheng Dafeng came back to his senses and said lazily, if you change the place, look at the aura of Lu Shen, he can scare people to death. In other words, in our Luolu mountain, everyone is strong so we don't care about this. Captain Xian felt a little regretful and said softly, if I had known his identity earlier, I would not have reported the number. The other side of the table didn't bother to express their feelings. Zheng Dafeng heard it clearly and said casually, I heard there is a metaphor that the Lu family in China is the Confucian temple and the imperial prison of the world. The Jiang family of Yunlin, who moved from the divine continent of the Middle Earth to the Aquarius continent, once held the position of hereditary Confucian great blessing in their family. The ancestor of the Lu family of the Middle Earth was Taibu, who was also one of the 6 officials of the ancient Confucian temple. To use an inappropriate analogy, the Yunlin Jiang family's Dezhu specializes in saying good things to God, while the Lu family's Taizhu is responsible for trying to figure out the meaning, interpretation, and paraphrase of God's every word. Hearing this, Xiaomili asked doubtfully, can God speak? What's the accent? Zheng Dafeng rubbed his chin. Xiaomili's question was much more difficult to answer than Fairy Qingjia's previous question. The Xianwei couldn't help laughing and explained casually, thunder and rain, wind and water are all God talking to the world. Xiaomili's eyes lit up and he nodded, it will be easier to understand with this explanation. Zheng Dafeng was a little helpless, no wonder the two of them could talk together best. The Xianwei asked tentatively, Brother Dafeng, could it be that I am really a wizard in Taoism? It is because our mountain master has a unique vision, so he values them so much. It's fine if you can't catch a young man who everyone envies. It's okay if you can settle for the next best thing, play it safe and make a late bloomer. The Xianwei suddenly became excited and stretched out his palm. Brother Dafeng always said that he is proficient in palmistry and is no better than the scammers like Pindao. Let me take a closer look. Does Pindao have the qualifications to found a sect? Zheng Dafeng put away his thoughts and squinted. Why, you have already planned to leave Luolu Mountain, form a clique and set up your own business? It's better. It's better to choose the day than to hit it and choose Lu Xin's Tiandu Peak. I think it's more appropriate. The Xianwei panicked, his face flushed, and he was so ashamed. How can you not? I'm just asking if you have the qualifications to be an Earth Immortal and want to know if you can succeed. It's the best, but it doesn't matter if you don't. Brother Dafeng, don't get me wrong. Xianwei is self-aware, but he is not the material that can establish a sect. He only talks about cultivation and turns over and over in those Taoist books, but he always recognizes the words but does not recognize him. Zheng Dafeng changed the topic and said for no reason, Master Xianwei, are you interested in editing a book by yourself? The Taoist priest laughed and said, it is better to borrow a book than to buy a book, and it is better to read a book than to write a book. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.